Hello and welcome everyone to day 3 of the bLU Talks Amplifier message event. And as usual this week, I am joined by a guest co-host. And today's guest co-host is Lana McAra. I made sure I said her name correctly, at least the Lana part. That's the only part I checked with
You did
before I
great.
went live this time. So Lana, I want to focus our conversations today a lot around that whole amplifier message. So it's about like, are you into writing or speaking or podcasting or like, what is that? How can our audience members take that and understand all of these people that we're interviewing? What is it about them and their background and their personality that helps them shine in these areas? So we're also going to do that by starting off introducing everyone, including you, with one of my favorite questions. If there were 3 words that you would like another person to use to describe you, what would those 3 words be?
You don't like to put people on the
I
on the
love to
spot,
put
do you,
you on the
Lori?
spot.
And it's so great to see you. So great to see
Thank
you again. I
you.
always love talking with you. Um, First one, alignment,
Ooh.
and that is authenticity, alignment.
Mhm.
Sometimes because I came from a past where I was squelched, now I speak truth, and sometimes it's a little much for people. Yeah. So the second word,
Alignment. What? That's number 1. Okay, number
second
2.
word um, is oh Lord, it just went out of my head. Maybe I wasn't supposed to say it.
Oh, maybe not.
Insightful,
Ooh,
insightful.
insightful.
Yes, I get a
Mhm.
lot of downloads about things. And then the third one is, believe it or not, adventurous.
That
I
aligns with
launch
me.
out, and
Uh-huh.
if I get a download, I launch out, and hey, we're full speed ahead and going for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to hear more about you as we're having conversations today, because I do want you to go, this is the kind of work that I do. Here's the conversation. We can lead it back and forth. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're starting with our
Absolutely.
curiosity. I'm going to
Okay.
bring up our first guest. His name is Dr. Keith McNally. I almost said Neath McCallie. It's one of those days. Oh my God. Welcome to the stage, Dr. Keith.
Miss Laura, I heard that.
I know you did. That's why I said it. It's like it's funny to just laugh at myself while I'm doing it.
Well,
Okay.
I appreciate the attempt to get my name right.
Eh,
Absolutely.
well, in my head, it's just like I'm ahead of myself. But I'm going to ask you the same question as I just asked Lana. To introduce yourself to everyone to start off today, what would be 3 words that you would like other people to use to describe you?
Good question. Creative, I think, would be one of them. And I say that because I wrote a book, and so
There you go.
I want to be. I do want to be creative, and I want people to see that side of me.
Mhm.
But I also talk to a lot of people and across the world, and many of them say that I put them at ease, and so I don't know how to put that into when because it's
Mhm.
really when you're having conversation, especially virtually, and you're doing a podcasting, you really want to put the other person, my guest, in a place of a safe space, a comfort. And so I don't know how to, I don't, and I'm a doctor and I don't even know, I can't even do that in one word.
Oh, in
So
one
whatever,
word?
for
No.
one word for a safe space. So putting them in the safe space or making them feel comfortable, I
Yeah.
guess. And then the third word, mm, what were my first two? So creative,
Creative. Make people feel
comfortable,
comfortable. Yeah.
and how about inquisitive? Because I brand
Ooh.
myself as the question guy. So
Oh.
I ask a lot of. So that's my podcast,
Okay.
and that's my brand. So the question guy podcast. And so I do tend to ask a lot of questions, just to kind of help facilitate that conversation.
Hmm. Well, let's start there. Why are you named the question guy? There's got to be a story behind that.
I hope there is, but it's kind of just something that just popped into my head. And so my background is as a doctor. I'm a college professor by trade, and so I've taught IT at the college level for many years. But to when I started the podcast, and so I run a low level podcast on YouTube, and my goal it came after the pandemic. We were coming out of the pandemic,
Yeah.
and we were still kind of in quarantine. And I wanted to get to know the people on my LinkedIn list. So I've had a connection list, and they were just names and profiles. So I started the podcast as Level Up, because people were doing some awesome transformations. They wanted to they use for those that I talked to, they used the quarantine and the pandemic as a time of personal transformation, right? So they didn't like their life, and so we were forced to look at ourselves. And there was two ways of looking at it. I guess I could hate my life, or I could do something about it. And so the people that I talked to were doing something about it, and so it was about transformation. And so Level Up seemed to be the appropriate way to introduce the idea of these conversations. But because as we moved along, my background, me being inquisitive, the question guy seemed to be most appropriate for what I was doing. And so that's exactly how I rebranded. It works. It sounds good. It sounds unique. There's somebody else out there called the Answer Guy. I've not met him yet. I've been told he's out there somewhere. So I'd have
Why
to
did you
Google that.
Google
But
search?
I do. I need to Google the Answer Guy, and then so I'm the question guy.
There's so much potential for collaboration there. But then,
I hope so.
the host of this show, the one who created Blue Talks, is called the speaker guy, Corey Poirier.
Yeah, I
And then
saw
I
that
know,
too. And so there's a lot of guys out there doing
yes, like there
things.
used to be the guy that knows a guy who is now the summit guy. It's there's a lot. But yeah, there's like that whole branding. You could just all collaborate on stuff.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. What kinds of questions do you like to ask? Like where would you fit yourself?
So in order to get conversation started, I typically ask, what do you see behind me?
Nerd stuff.
I do. Yeah, you do see nerd stuff. Exactly right. And it's a safe place to be in because because people, one, they like to play. So whether it's toys or playing music, or you're building slime with your 13, 12-year-old daughter,
Singing
which
before
I
we go
still kind of,
live.
what's that?
I said singing before we go live. Yeah.
Or singing before you go. So being in that safe space, I said, what do you see behind me? And most people, they're looking, and you say,
Dragon.
huh?
A dragon. Ooh, a bat
Well,
car.
you do see the Batmobile. So
Yeah.
that's the 1989's Tim Burton's from the original Batman. But these,
Quite tell.
so the first word that usually comes to people's mind is transformer. They might see a red. I don't think you see it over
No,
here,
he's out of
but
the picture.
depending
Decepticon.
if you're on Zoom or Teams or WebEx, you see different areas of my background. So they'll say transformers, and I say, okay, close. It's a mech, but what were they built with? And so these are all Lego toys. These are all Lego sets. And people know Lego. People know the brand. People know, some people, and I've met some people who have, the big Batmobile, the one that's like 2 foot long, or the Batwing that hangs on your wall. And so it's an immediate icebreaker, and you can start having conversations there. Or you could kind of dive into, tell me about your story. Everybody has a story. And you even said that earlier. You said there's a story behind the question guy. And there is. And so there's always a story behind everything. What's your story? Or, what have you been up to? So you kind of break into that because, like I said, I want to keep my podcast at a safe space. And because some of the conversations, knowing going in, are having to deal with real critical life issues, because people's lives in many ways, shapes, or forms have bottomed out in some way. They've experienced trauma, whether it be early childhood trauma, or I met somebody a year ago who lost husband, money, house, and had to really literally rebuild her life. And so from that rebuild, she actually long story short, she actually became the person that she wanted to be when all the crap happened.
Yeah.
And she now helps other women, rebuild their lives, primarily financially. But those are the things that are going on with all of us. We're all, my uh, not my colleague, my mentor, way back in college, told me that we are all in the process of becoming. Now, as a young man, I didn't know what that really meant. As
Mm.
half a century old, I now know that intentionally we should all be in the process of becoming, transforming, growing,
Mm.
and those kind of things. And so I try to keep those questions focused on those positives. Let's talk about the crap. Let's get it on the table. But you did something because of that crap. You made intentional changes, and so those are the conversations that I started having. That
Mm.
that makes sense.
Oh,
Hopefully
it
that
does
makes
make
sense.
sense. To
Okay.
come back to that point of becoming and not quite having a grip or an understanding of what that looks like, I always think of a tree or some sort of plant. Does it ever stop growing if it's alive? I don't know of any plant. That doesn't mean that there isn't one. But if we think of any sort of generic plant, they're always growing, they're always changing, there's always something happening. So that is that journey of becoming.
And they're transforming. So I've got
Yeah.
trees behind my house, and so through the seasons, the leaves fall, and now, if it would get warmer here in Virginia, um, and stay warm, the leaves would start to grow again. And so it may not be growing taller, but it's
Yeah.
definitely always in a process of transformation. And so there has to be a period that we go through the isolation, we go through, uh, you know, that death experience and then the rebirth. And so it's part
Mhm.
of all of us, I think, that we have to die to something in order to transform and grow into something else.
So my
But
big
you
question. Oh
go
yeah.
ahead.
No, my big question for everyone is, with all of this question guy stuff and you wanting to get deeper, but knowing that you can't just jump to the depth. Most
Right.
people like the surface level of conversation, but to really dive deeper into a conversation and ask those hard questions. I want to know what the big message is that you're trying to help people through.
The bigger or the deeper message
Hmm.
would simply be that there's a seed inside of you, and this
Mhm.
is the metaphorical element. There's a seed inside of you that wants to grow, but for whatever reason, and it's usually expectation, whether it be parents or society or culture or religion, whatever that expectation is, you're people are still living under those expectations. And so those expectations really do, and I'm going to use the word oppress. They push us down, and sometimes it may be intentional. Our parents want us to follow along in whatever that is, or our culture or religion, whatever it is. In order to communities survive because people do things together, but sometimes you got to take the opportunity. You got to take the chance. You got to take you have to figure out where you fit in the world.
Hmm.
And so that seed needs to be given an opportunity to grow, and then to mature, and then to experience, and then start to figure your life out. You could have all those conversations, you could understand where you kind of fit in, but then you alone have to find that safe space, that safe place for you to be who you are. And I think Lana, yeah, I think before we went live here, you talked about authenticity.
Mhm.
At least you mentioned the word, and so that's a theme that's running more recently throughout the conversations that I'm having. And I actually know somebody who calls herself an authenticity coach.
Mm.
And so that is quite powerful when we look at it, because although we have to fit into space, our community, our work, wherever that is, we still want to be true to ourselves. And so I guess, that's really the message behind the question guide, being true to yourself.
It's another aspect of that is going deeper and asking the authentic questions, not the questions you're supposed to ask
Yeah.
or giving the answers you're supposed to give, but
Yeah.
actually digging right down to it and getting to the quick of things. Yeah.
And going back, I think, our COVID experience, you know, hit that against the wall and said, for certain people, it's like, I need to find out who I am. I need to grow. I need to be authentic. I need to find out what my unique self is. And more people are diving into that despite the fear and the risk and how scary that could possibly be.
I'm so excited for those people. If
Yeah.
I may, I would love to play with word choice for a moment. So you said try to fit in. The words fit in, complete
Yeah.
with 90s air quotes. um, I'm playing with switching that out for the word belong because it does have that feeling that you were talking about with the authenticity. It's not like I'm trying to change myself to fit into what is left of this puzzle piece, just shove myself in there.
Mhm.
It's I'm still allowing myself to be myself, but how can I find spaces where I can express that and still be a part of the puzzle and still be a part of the community? Just has that slight emotional difference. How do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So fitting in is living up to others' expectations. So
Mm.
that's where I kind of see that as its
Okay.
space. Whereas belonging, you know, how there's a connection with you and the other people around you. So it's
Mhm.
more intimate, it's more emotional.
Mhm.
Um, Tap into the spiritual. I'm not a very spiritual person, but you get the idea that there's a sense of understanding, appreciation, respect versus I'm fitting in because I'm behaving the way I should.
Yeah.
I'm behaving the way other people expect me to. I am communicating the same words as everybody else. Yet, I personally don't feel like this is my tribe, my community, my people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a distinct difference.
So then what have been your chosen ways to share this kind of message? Are you a stage guy? Are you a book guy? Are you a podcast guy? You did talk about your podcast.
So the Question Guy podcast is the first intentional way of communicating this. And so I grabbed I grabbed onto the idea that these conversations that I was having needed to be shared. And so I did just that. And so, like I said, we went from Level Up to the Question Guy. They're on YouTube, trying to grow that audience step by step, little by little. People are telling me you can't treat your podcast, you have to treat it like a business. If you want it to grow it, you got to treat it like a business. And I understand that. And I think it'll get there. I do want to get on stage. And so I put myself on my own stage. And so I had an event here in Suffolk, Virginia in January. I brought some colleagues out and I put myself on stage and we had a small little workshop, which is really cool. Um, I'm in one of your Blue Talk events. At least I hope so. I'm supposed to
Well,
be
you're
speaking.
here.
Well, yeah, I'm here too, but I'm supposed to be speaking at Columbia University
Oh,
in
congratulations.
May.
Yeah.
So one way or the other, I have to find my way there because
Oh,
I grew up in Philly, but I've never been to New York. God help me. So I need to figure out one how to get there, and if I even have to hitch a ride up I-95, I have to
I,
find out how to get there. And can I show it? Can I show it, please,
yeah,
please, please?
please do. Walking the
Walking
path.
the
Angle
path, a
it just a
leader's
little bit.
journey. Okay. Walk
Oh,
over.
okay. I know the
Isn't she
light
pretty?
always does
She's
that.
really pretty. So it's Walking the Path of Leadership Journeys. This is my first book. I wrote
Yeah,
it
I
and
know.
well, thank you. I wrote it and published it last year. It came
Yay.
out in December, and it talks very much about what we're kind of talking about now. It combines fable or narrative with contextual elements of it's like leadership 101 or personal self development. of a young man. And so there's very specific focus. I don't know if we have got time to go into all that, but um, it's a, metaphorically and of course literally in the book, one person and a group of friends have to climb over the mountain to, like we said, find the space, find that place, find that community where they feel that they belong, because these are a bunch of misfit 17, 18 year olds who don't belong in the community that they live in, that they grew up in. And so that's kind of the nature of the book itself.
That seems
And
like it's right up
yeah,
Lana's alley.
Yeah.
so their mentor gives them permission um, to go find who they are, um, and off they go.
Lana, have you ever helped anyone through like a cross between fiction and nonfiction, since Keith brought it up?
Absolutely, because what I teach, what I write is, ghostwriting, etc., and also fiction. But I teach a course on impact-driven fiction, where you take your life lessons, your deep lessons, and embed them into story form. That's made up characters. It's not biographical. It's not metaphor or anything. Memoir. It's not memoir or anything like that. So that sounds, yes, absolutely right up my alley. You're so in tune, Laura. Thank you.
I love it. Because I want to know why you decided to write it that way, Keith. Why? Like, was it based off of a personal experience, or did you just think that this would be a better way to explain some lessons and thoughts?
So earlier in our conversation, you asked, three words that either you would describe yourself or others would describe you. And so I have been writing fictional stuff, for 20 years. I never published anything because you never think that your stuff is ever good enough. And so I kind of grew up in that mentality that nothing you're ever going to do is going to be good enough. But 2 years ago, as a result of COVID and the pandemic, I did my own soul searching. I did my own transformation. But to directly answer your question, I think everything that when the creative person goes to put pen, and I literally use pen first and put stuff down on paper, it's the over what's that?
Always. Always.
It's the overflow of who you are, and there, I don't know how to better describe that, but again, it's that seed that I talked about earlier,
Uh-huh.
that once you give it permission to grow, it takes a life of its own. And so this is just an extension of who I am. My book is an extension of who I am. So it's both what I see going on in a very young generation. So 18 to 28, 30-year-old men are having difficulty even understanding their own value these days. Their value, their worth, their purpose. And even if they're not communicating it, it's the outward appearance of many still living with their parents or being deeply in debt and dealing with a lot of interpersonal issues, I guess is the best way to put it, that men my age and women are our age really need to tap into, say, hey, there's something going on with the world's leaders, up and coming leaders. And if we leave them to themselves, they're not going to be able to lead anything. They're not even going to be able to lead themselves. And so we need to help them. So it's part of that. It's part of me. And it's part of the creative experience of just, letting my subconscious, explore what can possibly be out there. And it's based on some other people's works. And so I've had lots of collaboration, lots of talks with people. And so you pick up ideas, you pick up thoughts, and ooh, this would be really cool. Ooh, this would be really cool. And so you just put it all together. And for those who can, just put it all together. So there's three main characters. There's John, there's Liz, and there's Penny. And Penny's has a physical deformity. Liz is adventurous, and John's trying to figure himself out. And then there's Julie, who's kind of part of it, but she feels left out a lot because she's always looking up to Liz, who's kind of the, the very popular one. But so there's lots of different dynamics in the story that, from a perspective, if I was to look internally, all those characters are a part of me. There's some part of me who is adventurous. There's part of me who wants to be like other people. There's part of me who's still figuring life out, and there's part of me who sometimes just wants to go hide in a corner. you know, Sometimes life gets to be overburdened. You want to go hide in a corner, but then that adventurous person says, "Hey, you know, let's do one more thing. Let's take one more step."
Yeah.
I love that, because when you embed your heart, your lessons, your understanding in the fiction, then you have something to talk about. It's not just, oh, I made up this cool story. It's a meaningful conversation, just like exactly what you did so beautifully there. This is how it affects people's lives. And then you can speak on stage, podcasts, and other things, and actually bring your fiction to life, literally into life, for the people that are listening to you, that resonate with that need it. And so it becomes an expansive thing, not just an escape. Meaningful fiction is powerful, very powerful, but we have to be brave enough, and congratulations for being brave enough to go there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like
There was,
that it's an expansion.
and there was. Can I add something to the conversation?
No.
Because no,
Of course
because
you can.
I was watching, your guests on Monday,
Mhm.
and part of what the book talks about is being given permission. Because, like I said, when we live our lives under oppression, I think many of us do, until somebody says, yeah, you can do it. Yes, you can. And so I use four phrases, but one of them is, yes, you can. And so her name was Lisa Schermerhorn.
Schermerhorn, one of my best friends.
and
Yes.
and she talked about being in this like a week-long retreat where part of it had to be walking over hot coals.
Yes.
And so she talked about that and the value that was. But when it came to, and she said this in on your conversation, when it came to the last day and she had to walk the 40-foot hot coal trail, and she hesitated, and she didn't say the word fear or she was afraid of anything, but she wasn't ready to do it until somebody at that event said, "Didn't you walk 10-foot spaces at a time, like throughout the week?" And she said, "Yeah, so you can do this." Somebody gave her permission outside of herself, which is a lot of times what we need. And then when that clicked in her, when somebody said, "Yeah, you can do this," she did it. And that's a lot of what our life is about. When we typically don't give ourselves permission for whatever reason, for fear, for mostly fear, but for whatever that is for you personally, when somebody tells you, you've already done it, now do this, it changes our world. And it changed hers because you went and did it. And she was changed because of that.
Yes.
Her life became different after that, and it's becoming different every day for her. And so that story, and the power of what my talk is, the power of permission. When you're given permission, your world can change. I just wanted to add that because I thought what she talked about and what I talk about in my book are kind of on the same tune, same line. They're in alignment. I think, Lana, you used the word alignment earlier too.
Yes.
Well, when I've heard a lot of conversations just everywhere about permission.
Yeah.
I got to the point at one point where I was doing business cards. I'm like, why don't I just do a second batch that is basically a permission slip and just give this to people everywhere I am, whether it's on the street, at the bus stop, downtown, at a coffee shop, who cares? You just randomly hand these out to people and say, and just like leave it blank. I, whomever, give you fill in the blank, permission to do fill in the
Fill in the
blank.
blank. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And then
carry
they
that
can
around.
keep it in
Yeah.
their wallet, and then they can just always look at it and go, I can give myself permission anytime I want.
Mhm.
And just knowing that and having that reminder
It's
would be so
gold.
cool.
Yeah.
But you did mention that you have a talk called The Power of Permission. And
Well,
earlier you had said that you
go ahead.
wanted to be
I
on
want
stage.
that to be my stage talk. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you want to be on stage? Why not just stick to books?
I think there's that dynamic, and it's one of those things where it's innate to you. It's that other seed that's inside of me, and so you say, "Wasn't there a story to that?" And there is.
There always is.
I don't know if
Sometimes
you've
it's
got.
a simple one, but there always is.
Uh, well, it started when I was in college, because again, growing up, not parents divorced, just very chaotic, growing up, all that kind of stuff. And so I was very closed, not making a whole lot of friends. Thus, I'm an 8 and not very, nobody's going to invite me to a party kind of thing that we talked about earlier.
Oh,
So all that's really true, but for maybe different reasons. Whether or not my name gives off a vibration, I'm not quite sure. But when I get into college in North Carolina, in order to graduate, you have to take a speaking class, a public speaking class. I think that's kind of natural for most colleges, but at least in North Carolina, and we're talking, back in the 90s. So my thought was, you could do this and belabor the point at a traditional 16-week semester, or you could do it in 6 weeks during summertime. So you could do a bunch of talks. And the reason this is so important is because at that time in my life, and so again, young to mid 20s, when I were ever put in that position, my knee-jerk reaction is to perspire and to sweat really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever, put into that position, and I say that to say, when I did the 4 talks in 6 weeks, it would look like as if I was just thrown into a swimming pool, because I was that wet from perspiration, just being up on stage. And so
Yeah.
even my tie was wet. And the tie is out here.
Okay, that's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. And so you get the picture. But there was something about the overall experience. There was something that, despite the anxiety that it provoked, you got to do more of it. What? Why? That's foolish. But I did. So once I graduated college and got my first job as a social worker, I started volunteering at schools to talk about mental health issues in kids, or at churches and whatnot. I put myself in places that would challenge me without any official training. Like, I didn't hire a speaking coach or whatever. I put myself in places where I could fight off that fear. And I became a college professor, so go figure.
I don't know if it's the same. Do you see it as the same, teaching versus speaking? Because some don't see it as the same at all.
It's always a performance.
Okay.
Whether you're on stage, you're performing, because it's half of what you're saying and it's half of what you're giving. So you can't just stay up there. I could go up on stage and read this book out loud. I would bore people to death, because it's just reading something, but you're engaging with the audience and you are fundamentally giving a performance. In order to engage my students, I don't care what age they are, but college specifically, you still have to perform. You have to make that talk interesting, and you have to make it align and important to what they're learning and why it's important to their profession. So at any point in time, it's going to be, a performance at some level. So they're very much the same. They're not the same in context or content for both, but it's still very much a performance. You are giving something of value to your audience, but at the same time, you have to keep them engaged so that they want more. So I do see them as very much similar. They're not the same, but they're very much similar.
So what is it that you do like about speaking? What kept you going to that stage?
I don't know. I got to.
You don't know?
I don't, because I do. Like I said, it's that that thing, that seed that has to grow,
Oh,
that it constantly has to grow. And so that is as much as, being a podcast host, having conversations with people,
mhm,
writing a book. Hopefully I get to write another one. Hopefully they'll sell. Getting on stage, it then becomes a part of who you are.
mhm.
So both of you, this is a part of who you are. This is an extension of your person. So we don't disconnect personally, professionally. It's you.
Yep.
So
Well,
this has become me.
that's exactly the kinds of conversations that I love to have. It's like, especially as a solopreneur, if you've ever started off as a solopreneur, your business isn't you, but it is an expression of you.
Yeah.
And so, like, how do you have an understanding of who you are as a human being and also have an understanding of how you express yourself in your business and then find that harmony, that balance, that
Mm.
flow and ease where that line isn't this solid thick wall, it's this dance between a blending of everything, and it's just, to
And
me, it's
that's
beautiful.
life. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's see, you
As
wrote a book,
a
you want
as
to
an
write more
author,
books. Go
as
ahead,
an
Lana.
author, yeah, as an author, the number one best way to get your book out there is speaking. So, I mean, that because you have that calling, that's the next step, speaking. So,
Well, if
yeah.
you got a stage for me, I would be glad to step on it.
I do have a stage for you. I have 4 stages a year. It's called the Entrepreneur Summit. You've obviously already shown me you're a nerd.
That's beyond me.
Exactly, but the whole point is just to understand who you are as a human being and celebrate the types of fandoms that you have.
Right.
So how can you explain your work through your favorite fandom? Because if you want somebody to learn something new, it's so much easier if you reference that in something that they already know. Hence the entrepreneur. It's like, if you like Lego, how do you explain asking questions by using your fandom of Lego?
Yeah.
Right? It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Do you see the Stormbringer, which is the dragon?
I see the dragon, yeah.
Yeah. He's actually a robot.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's a Lego Boost product combined with the Stormbringer Lego Ninjago 2020, I think,
Okay, yeah.
2018 series. So he could do like he can move back and forth and dance and cluck like a chicken and roar like a dragon. He could do a lot of things. And so I love, bringing him with
Mm-hmm.
me if I get a chance, because he's again one of those icebreakers
Yeah.
that would really start getting people involved and say, "Oh, wow, this is really cool." And he's
Yeah.
like 8 years old.
I usually cosplay, like that's part of my nerddom because I get to express myself with all the many skills that I have. It's a lot of fun.
Cool.
So Keith, I want to make sure that we also cover we did talk about what your core message is to make sure that people understood that. Where do we find you? How do we get a hold of you?
I am on LinkedIn. You find me on LinkedIn. So that's really I'm very active. I have an active community of educators that I support and other coaches that I support. I do post. I'm Jewish, so I don't really do a lot on Saturdays because it's my Sabbath. But most every other day of the week, multiple times. Best way. I do have a website. I'm revamping that to kind of make this a highlight.
Ah, yes.
And of course, I'm on YouTube. And so everywhere, it's Dr. for doctor, DrKeithMcNally. So anywhere it's on YouTube, LinkedIn, or my website, it's drkeithmcnally.com.
Okay. And is there anything that you want to make sure that you share with our audience? We have about 5 minutes left, so.
So really, everything I talk about is purpose and permission. That
Mm.
those are for me the underlying causes of not doing something. You don't know what your purpose is, and you have not given yourself permission because nobody is around you is given permission for you to do it. And so I always go back because Lisa, I think her name's Lisa. Lisa's name is
Schermerhorn.
yeah, Schermerhorn, Miss Schermerhorn. Those conversations come up all the time. Those stories come up all the time. We stop ourselves. We stop. We know we can do it. We've done it before. She's done it. She did the 10 feet walk, and yet she was blocking herself from the 40-foot, and it was no different. It was just longer. We do that to ourselves all the time. We stop ourselves. We don't have to stop ourselves, but sometimes it does take somebody else, somebody that you trust, whether it's a friend, a coach, a mentor, whoever that is.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we do need that. And so for those of us in the coaching environment, I'm hoping to build that up too. That's what makes coaches very, very valuable or invaluable, depending on your perspective. They're the people that give you the permission. Say, yeah, you can do this. I believe in you. And I know you are able. And so those are the key phrases that I use. Yes, you can. I give permission because you are able. And then finally, the fourth word is all part of my talk. Let's find a way. Because sometimes they don't know. And so if we go through life with those 4 phrases, you could accomplish most anything. Absolutely. I do believe that.
Nice. Did you have any questions, Lana, before we end?
Well, that just blew me away. That was let's find a way. I mean, that was like blew me back. And for the first time, you really opened my understanding that when we work with people and teach people, we are seeing in them the capability that they may not see for themselves. So, when you say, yes, you can see it because you're not looking through their eyes of limitation. Mm-hmm. And that peels off that layer and helps them see, well, maybe I can.
Yeah, they start believing in themselves.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautifully said. I'm looking forward to hearing your talk.
I'm looking forward to giving it as many times as I can. Yeah. It's exciting.
What would be the hook? You said the power of permission is the name of your talk. What would be the hook in that? What would tease people to want to come listen to that talk?
Have you ever walked over 10 feet of glass?
If you've ever walked over 10 feet of glass.
Well, that's what Lisa did. And so she said she had to walk over glass, hot coals. Have you ever been forced to climb a mountain but didn't know how? It's whatever that obstacle is, because I would literally have to know my audience a bit better. So it's whatever the obstacle that audience or a majority of that audience is facing. So it could be, have you ever had to do 10 things in 1 minute? Whatever that obstacle is.
Yes.
And you are saying, yeah.
I am packing. I'm dealing with a sick cat. I'm like doing this. Yesterday, my daughter came home sick. Like it's been chaos.
So whatever those obstacles are, then you just, yes, you can.
Yep.
You start walking through those phrases, I give permission. So let's find a way. And the kicker, as you just said, is let's find a way. Let's break it down. And so whatever that obstacle is where you start, because our obstacles always seem insurmountable until you build in those phrases. And those phrases are built around the mastermind idea that we work better with people. And that's been around for 100 years now with Napoleon Hill. It's been reiterated in different ways, but it's the same thing. When we work with people, we find a way of accomplishing things.
So I'm going to ask that of our audience, trying to get a little bit more engagement here on day.
Oh, we have an audience?
Yeah. Well, kind of. We have people. We can't see it when we're here on StreamYard.
Okay.
Not really. Okay. Only if they give permission. But that's okay. There's going to be replay people. There's live people. It's great. I'm giving homework to both us and the people watching, whether it's live or on the replay. I want you to type in the comments wherever you are. I give myself permission to, and then fill in the blank. If it's to take a nap because you need a nap today. Hi, Ani. See, look, we watch. She's like, I'm here watching. Show there. Yeah, I'm here watching.
Hey,
Love you too, Ani. I give myself permission to, and then fill in the blank with whatever it is that you've been stopping yourself from doing. And just picture Dr. Keith telling you if you need somebody external to tell you doing this. I give myself, or Dr. Keith
I
gives
give
me
permission.
permission
Yeah.
to fill in the blank. How's that sound?
Are they doing it?
I'm hoping so. It's all good. But I will leave it with that. And I want to say thank you so much for joining us, not just today, but for engaging earlier this week too. It really does mean a lot. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
I'm going to put you in the backstage. You're more than welcome to stay if you'd like. But we're going to bring up our next guest.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Our next guest, I give myself permission to fulfill my dreams. Ooh, see? See, look, we have engagement.
Yes.
I'm just not always watching it. So our next guest is Donna, and I'm going to bring her up on stage in just a minute. You give me a thumbs up if you're sounding good. Good. Okay. Add to stream. Hi, Donna. I am in love with that necklace.
Oh, thank you.
That last time we had a conversation. Welcome to the stage. Welcome to Blue Talks. How are you
Thank
today?
I'm great, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful spring day here in Boston, so
Oh, yes, you're in Boston.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
I was just in Boston at Harvard, speaking at Blue Talks at Harvard
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That was in January.
in January. Yeah.
Great.
Very nice.
I'm asking people a slightly different opening question this time. Today,
Okay.
we're being a little more playful. Today, I want to know what would be 3 words that you would like other people to use to describe you.
Oh, okay. 3 words. Oh.
And I love the thinking and putting people on the spot.
I know. There's so many words I want to say. I'm gonna go with approachable,
Ooh.
magnifying,
Mm-hmm.
and radiant.
Ooh. I think I
Radiant's
spelled
great.
magnifying wrong. There we go. It doesn't really matter as long as I
And it-
know what my own handwriting says.
And
Why
it
did you
wasn't
pick those 3
always
words?
that way that I would ever dream of picking 3 words like that. So.
Ah, but then I want to know where your head is at. What makes you feel as though the word approachable describes you, and the word magnifying, and then the word
Yeah, I feel it's the energy that I exude
Mhm.
out into the world and out into everybody that I encounter. That's actually an intention that I have had, is to allow people to feel, for people to feel my energy that's approachable. So when we intend that to be, so it is, right? If you practice it, yeah. So people feeling comfortable just coming up and approaching me, basically asking questions, wanting to get to know me, wanting to be in my presence. I really honor that.
You do have such a warm presence. I've never felt anything else from you, so
Oh,
I appreciate it. And then your last word, you had magnifying and radiant. Where did those
yeah,
come
magnifying. It brings me to magnify your mind. And personally, that's been a journey for me, magnifying my mind with awareness and non-judgment and gratitude, all those wonderful, practices that we can engage to, to learn and grow and expand. So that's what magnify, like, that's what I help people. I've helped myself, right? And now I'm, helping people recognize that magnification and how we can go about that. And then the last one, radiant, is I feel over the past few years, I've undergone, traveled through this transformation that has literally made me feel this compassion in my heart. And I embrace that and radiate that out into the world.
I like all of that.
Hmm.
And I ask the 3 words because sometimes it's hard to describe ourselves. Like when people ask for our bio, I'm not sure about you, but I find it really difficult. And so when I say, tell me about yourself, they're like, where do I start? I don't know what to share. And then it's almost always the work. But we also want to learn about the human being behind the business. Because if we understand who Donna is, then it doesn't matter how Donna expresses the work that she does in the future. We're still going to understand where you're coming from.
Right.
Right. Hence this whole amplifying your message. So then the next step of this is, well, what is your message? If you want to be described as approachable, magnifying, and radiant, how does that connect to that big message that you want to share with people?
I know there's a few, but I'm gonna just focus on one
Sure.
that literally I want to say cracked open my heart.
Aw.
And I'm gonna be skipping a lot, but basically, as my son came to me one day, telling me that he was wishing for disease to take his life, and I literally like curled up in a ball in the dark, unable to, deal with this, like the shame, the guilt. How did I not know? Right. And this can be in a lot of different scenarios in life that we encounter, but specifically this was that. And I found myself at the beach one day, and there's a whole, example there, but I found myself writing in the sand a big heart with my son's name, his date of birth, and help. And I think that's the first time I ever like asked for help in that kind of, I was in this place of hopelessness, of despair, of how could this be happening? And he had expressed that he didn't want to commit suicide, so that he was wishing for that. So I left the beach after this beautiful visualization and experience, and I left there feeling not alone.
Aw.
And I ended up taking on this meditation practice that was, I found, but I know it was a gift to me, this meditation. And I visualized a cord going from my heart to my son's heart and pushing balls of light, just seeing light, music notes, love, hearts, compassion, forgiveness, just powering through this cord and into his heart and seeing him smile again. And that was what gave me the place where I could show up as a mother for myself. I could show up for myself and as a mother for my son, like I never thought I could. And I feel it was that shift in my mindset. And I stopped judging him and telling him what to do and forcing information on him, and not really listening to respond, to have a reply, not listening with my heart. And so I stopped all that and started believing in him and not judging him and listening with my heart. Very different. Because when we're listening to reply, we're not even really listening, right?
Yeah.
So all of this started to just flow with me. And like I said, I was able to show up as a mother like I never thought I could. And today I thank him. For traveling his journey, because I think if he didn't go through what he went through, I wouldn't have gone through what I went through. And I know that sounds a little weird, but I was able to find this space, this sacred space to hold for him and let him travel his journey. And somebody said something interesting to me that I held on to, and it really made a difference. And it was that sometimes we force ourselves so much into trying to fix other people and their situation that you're actually interfering with their journey. Now, I'm not saying we don't help, we don't support, we don't, you know what I mean? But it's that, and when I took that on, it was actually this kind of grace and relief that, you know, it's okay. It's going to work out. And I just have to believe that. So that is, you know, I want to say my transformation into this line of work. And I always say we're all sitting on some serious talent, and we can choose to share it, hone it, master it, right? And we can heal ourselves in the process as we're helping to heal other people. So I feel like what my son, you know, his experience rippled out into this expansion of myself, this radiant, magnifying person that was able to show up.
I want to thank you, first off, Donna, for sharing that. And at the same time, it reminded me of being in a very similar place as your son on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
I never even thought about how my mother would have reacted to that. She didn't know it that it had happened until I was an adult. She didn't know I was in that headspace. But I never thought she might feel any guilt for not being there. So thank you for bringing that to my attention, because it is nice to know both sides of the story. Now I'm going to have go have a conversation with my mom and hope that she's not holding anything from that kind of situation. So thank
That's
you.
beautiful. And I think,
Yeah.
go with your gut, go with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something beautiful will transpire out of that.
That's the hope. It's like I think I've talked to my daughter about it more times than my mom, because I didn't think about it. And I'm not sure if my mom would have the same thought toward me, as she just didn't think that her happy-go-lucky daughter would ever feel that way. It's like,
It's scary, but
Yeah.
you know, it actually will help you make more resolution with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So then, Donna, tell us about, well, we know about you as a human being. We're starting to learn about some of the work that you do. What is it that you do? What do you help people with?
so I started a company called Evoke Change Center, and literally everything has been unfolding. And I was asked to write a book. I wrote a book, and it was specific for parents with children on the autism spectrum.
Yes.
It was unconventional solutions. Yeah, the highest frequencies of love is my umbrella. And really what's happened now, so the book led to a course, which led to 5 more courses, which now have led to be partnered with Family Services, the YMCA, and just newly I'm partnering with it's like they call it B2B. So it's going to be going out to school districts, and again, family services and parents. So the idea is the highest frequencies. How do we activate a higher frequency? How do we love more when we don't want to? How do we love more during challenging times? How do we love more during divorce, right? So all that is what I'm talking about. How do we access and activate a higher frequency, ... the highest frequency of love, which is 528 hertz. How do we learn to do that, right? So a lot of these children, individuals with autism, are highly sensitive, which we already know, right? They're more tapped in and tuned into energy than the average person is. So what I teach is vibrational sensitivity and energy matching.
Oh.
When our thoughts, so specifically with neurodivergent individuals, when a parent, school teacher, whoever is, they're with, their words, because every word holds energy and light. Every word, it's either going to lift us up or it's going to dim us, right? It's either or.
Yeah.
So when parents or school teachers are speaking words that are not in the same frequency as our thoughts and body language, right? Because we can say things, but our body is saying something different, our body language, right? And our thoughts are also energetic, sharing energy out in the world. So when those are mismatched, these kids know it. They know it's not authentic. And they pull back, they can shut down. Like they don't want any part of that. So helping parents with simple techniques and tools of, there's a whole bunch of them, but it's how do we raise, I teach how do we raise our frequency? How do we think different and act different, less from the ego and more from the heart space, our innate being.
There's a lot of conversations lately about neurodiversity and all sorts of people from all different cultures and places and races, just everything, where there are many people that are being diagnosed with different diagnoses. I can't think of another word at the moment. And so they're starting to go, oh, that's why I've been behaving like this. That's why I think differently than most people that I know. That's why I fill in the blank. Can you give us an example of maybe one of those word choices, which has come up over the last few days? One of the ones that we had mentioned was switching out the word stress for challenged. Because a lot of people have a relationship to the word stress, and it's not necessarily a nice one.
Right.
Is that kind of thing also involved in the work that you do?
Yes. So again, like teaching people, or not even teaching, just having people be more aware, right? Aware of their words. And once you understand that your word holds energy, and it can shift the mood. So for the words, so if you say something, I suck, right? I stink.
Oh.
I'm really bad at this. I can't do this. All those words are low vibrational. They're not going to make you feel good. They're going to make your body like, oh, I stink. I'm uncomfortable, whatever it is, right? So, and you're valid in saying that if that's how you feel, but just knowing that that's the energy that you're going to bring back to you, right? So I think that's enough to for a lot of people to start to pay attention to the words that they're saying, and how they're affecting other people to boot. So rather than saying those words, every day I'm getting better at this. I can do this. I'm working harder at this, not harder. I'm working, progressing at this, like choosing words. Sometimes I even say words that I feel that are not necessarily true yet.
Yes.
So that's the power of auto-suggestion. And I teach that too, which it's changed my life, the power of auto-suggestion. And I record it in my own voice. I do that for my clients. But I want to give an example of something so you're in a restaurant, there's a waitress, and somebody's giving her really a hard time. That really can bother me. Yeah. Right. So everybody that I meet the rest of the day, I could approach that person and tell him he's a, blah, 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 right? Negative stuff. And then I could go to work, and then at work, I tell everybody at work about this person, right?
Yeah.
And then I go home and tell my husband and my kids. So what have I done? I've brought all that ugly, dimming energy throughout my whole day. And at night, I'm still holding on to it, right? Yeah. So what I'm trying to help people do, which is what I've done, and it has, opened my world up, in much more joy and happiness and creating things that I want in my life is to acknowledge that person, right? In my mind, I'm acknowledging that person that was really rude and have compassion by saying, you know, I'm going to send some love to that person because obviously they need it. Take a pause and say, you know, I don't know what happened to that, you know, I don't know what happened to that person in their life that made them, I wonder what happened to that person in their life to make them so miserable and angry, right? And then choose not to like talk about it all day long. Let it go. Send some compassion, send some love. Obviously, if it's something that you need to, you know, address, but in this circumstance, you know, the way, you know, just by doing that. So do you see the difference of how we can activate a higher level in our energy and the energy that we exude out by these kinds of, this kind of awareness, I want to say.
Definitely. I love metaphors. So I'm picturing myself in my head and like there's the thing that I want on this side and the thing that I don't want on this side. And the only way that I can talk to one or the other is to completely turn my attention from one to the other. So if I want to tell my kid and my family and my friends and my community how much I love them and how much I want to spend time with them, but I'm too busy over here going to something else, I'm ignoring and turning my back to them, the things that I want constantly. So then the question and the self-awareness at the same time is, where am I looking? Where am I facing? Where am I spending my time and energy? And what am I turning my back to when I'm doing it?
I love that.
Like, oh, because that'll make you think. You're like, I'm turning my back on the things that I love and the things I care about to take time away from that to go say something else to someone else. Okay. It makes you want to turn back around.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I do often ask myself when I do start to do what you said, what you were just describing,
Ooh.
I'll say, I pause, learning to pause and take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds so silly, but it's so powerful. And I literally will shift my energy and ask myself, will this, if I say this, if I do this, will this progress me to my goal of better relationships, my goal of a better me, you know, whatever it is, you know, it can be related to anything, any small task or a big task. Is this going to, like, if I say something to my mother that, you know, I'm correcting her on something, or, you know what I mean? Like, just pause and say, is that going to make her feel better? Is that going to help me to press? No, it doesn't need to be. I don't need to have an opinion on everything. And how relieving that is that I don't have to exert that energy. So I'm practicing at mastering, you know, I mean, we're human, so we're always going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Not mistakes. We're going to, you know, going to have judgment. We're going to say things we regret, right? It's going to happen. But having compassion for yourself and never beating yourself up over that is huge. So I just say, when I do have a thought or something that I don't want to have, I just say, that's okay, Donna. Now I go, thank you. And I look up and I just say, thank you. I'm getting one step closer to meeting my goal. Because you do have those setbacks, and it's okay. You're always going to have them. So don't ever beat yourself up over it. And that's a great way to be aware of your words and thoughts, and still how to stay elevated.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That word has been in my life a lot this year, the elevating. As we were talking about with Dr. Keith, it's that expansion, that word that Lana used earlier. It's that metaphor of the plant where we're growing. We have that seed within us. And so expansion is just an elevation. It's just that next step. Always that next step. That feels good.
Yes, it does.
Donna, what you're saying to me is it's a broad spectrum life lesson for everyone. I know you've niched down to the, you know, helping people who have autism or autistic children, but this is awesome. So tell us more about your book. What's the title of it? And do you have a copy there?
I do. It's called The Highest Frequencies of Love, Unconventional Solutions for Parents with Children on the Autism Spectrum. So yeah, I have it right over here. I'll grab it.
Okay.
Yeah, I always love when I see the physical book, because then when I'm in the store or online, I just go, I don't remember the name of the book, or I don't
there it
remember
is.
the cover. There you go. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
There you go. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was an international bestseller.
Congratulations.
And
Yeah.
I swear I manifested it. A globe shows up from a friend who was getting rid of a globe. And then every morning I would say, you know, I visualize this work, this body of work. So I say that the overall is my purpose is to awaken compassion in our world as an author, course creator, facilitator, coach. So I used to visualize that and seeing this book be in the homes of families and in the hands of families, and you know, reading this book to raise their frequency and become more aware. And then so in Spain and in Canada, it was also a bestseller. So yep.
Wow. Yeah.
At first, I was like, what do you mean in Canada? You're not in Canada? And then I realized, no, you're in Boston. We've already established.
Right. Yeah. So isn't
Because
that
I'm
funny?
in Canada, I just assume. Even
Right.
though most people are in the US. I know how weird we do that. And Dr. Keith is like, love the book cover. So yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes. And like I said, this was the start, and now it really is going to be applied to so many, you know. Another one that I've been asked to write is for the highest frequencies of love for parents. You know, I don't have the title yet, but with kids, children who are thinking of, you know, like my son taking his life. Mm-hmm. Like, how do we show up? How can we flip that switch? I call it the chandelier. Like, I'll say to people, do you, what if I told you you had a chandelier inside of you? Would you believe me?
I would be very confused.
No.
And I'd be like, okay, tell me what the chandelier is.
So, right, the chandelier, is your chandelier dim, some lights out, all the lights out, or is it bright and just radiating? And so the chandelier, and I will say it's true, because I found the chandelier in me. Okay. And and with my son, right, I was able to, I felt like I had this, that's how I came up with it. I feel like I had this chandelier that I could dial up and turn up brighter and brighter for my son.
So similar to the Grinch growing his heart and expanding.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think of that, but yeah, I can, as soon as you said that, the heart.
Because when you talk about the inner light, I always picture my heart. And then when I picture my heart, I picture, of course, the Grinch with the expanding heart. But then because I feel that pressure in my chest where it's not the tightness, it's so much of an expansion and a swelling of just love that it can't be contained in my chest anymore. So it's kind of that whole, the light, the love. Yeah.
I feel that from both of you. The smiles, the eyes, yeah.
I know. My daughter makes fun of me. So does my husband. I'll smile and then they'll make me laugh, and then my eyes close more and more and more, and then I can't see. And then they'll try to poke me or like tickle me because I can't see.
Makes it worse. Oh, that makes it worse. But that's fun.
So Donna, you mentioned that you have a book. You've already showed us your book. You've also mentioned that you speak on stage. So how did you get into speaking, since we're talking about amplifying your message in different ways?
Well, that was kind of a surprise, just like me being an author was a surprise. Like, that wasn't something I really said, oh, this is what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I got invited to a speaker's boot camp.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And then from there, I was able to share my message, and it was well received and felt it was a message that needs to be heard.
Mhm.
And so I've been doing some speaking and at South Shore women's conferences, and I was at Columbia University in New York last fall, and then UCLA in February. And yeah, so I'm, I have my PowerPoint presentation and starting to present it for family services and the Ys. So it's just, like I said at the beginning, everything's just been kind of unfolding, and people are coming into my life and I've always said, this is what I say, I want partnerships to make a difference. And I don't want to do this work alone. I don't want Evoke Change Center to just be me, right? I want to work with creative, like-minded people to brainstorm and just elevate my ideas and shared ideas and creativity to really make a difference in a truly expansive way globally.
So then how, since you brought it up, how has shifting your community and the people that you surround yourself with, how has that experience elevated sharing your message?
It's just confirmed, I guess, confirmation.
Mhm.
When it really helps people shift their relationships. Forgiveness, when I work with them on their forgiveness and how much relief that brings. And it's not easy, right? It's not, this work is not easy. Forgiving yourself and forgiving people who you've perceived to have harmed you, that's a biggie. And self-love. To see somebody, from the beginning assessment to the end of the assessment, it's really amazing to see what people accomplish through just these, through sharing my knowledge and my experiences and, from all my mentors and so forth. It's hard to even put a word to it. But I want to say it gives me hope for people, for the universe. It gives me hope that if I can do it and I can help people, right? So literally what's happening is this course, the HFL, that's highest frequencies of love.
Mhm.
It's going to be a certification. I don't even know how this is happening, but teachers and educators and therapists are going to be taking my course to get certified to teach it. I've created co-created, I'm going to say, an original methodology. So there's a whole format, processes to this kind of the program, the course. And so that's pretty exciting. And I have people like working on it with me for all the technical, all the marketing, all that stuff. So it's pretty awesome.
So now I'm curious, because I'm one of those people, which I'm guessing many of us are, who create our own processes and have thought about making a certification around it. What kind of hoops do we need to jump through for that? Or do you just kind of decide one day, I'm going to make this a certification and make up your own paperwork? I don't know how this works. Do tell.
It's actually already accredited for continuing education credits. Two of the courses are. So that, again, builds my credibility. But I want to say I started with a purpose, and then it developed into, it kind of came to me rather than me going after it. It was just as I continued to meditate, as I continued to dissolve the ego to a place where I could have room in my mind for the good, yummy stuff, right? To receive the ideas and creativity. Before I was just a mess in my mind, monkey mind, they call it. And there's no room, right? There's no room in there. It's filled to the top with chaos, right? So as we shift and go into meditation, gratitude, journaling, it really is, I feel, what allowed these ideas to come to me. And then I would set intentions, and then I would write them out, and then I would imagine them to grow more, and then I would come up with like partnerships to make a difference, and then speaker boot camp shows up, and I've learned to pay more attention to my body and its flags and its feelings when I do have thoughts, and less from the paradigms, the conditioning that I've still, I mean, it's a work in progress, right?
Does it ever end?
I really want to say that as we open up and as we desire to serve for the highest good of all, something that I say, I don't know, you start to believe in yourself in a way that you never thought. And I acknowledge, like when I wake up in the morning, I go down the stairs and out the front door, and I acknowledge the abundance and limitlessness within the universe. And then I turn around and I acknowledge that the same for me, the abundance and limitlessness I have within myself. And it's powerful. It's powerful. And it's self-love and forgiveness. I think those are the two core things that help me be able to, create this reality that's literally unfolding right in front of me. Huge decisions and simplifying decisions when you take your emotions out of them. It's amazing. Yeah. So I would say it's the basics. It's the basics of releasing the stress and those components, and then just asking for what you want and writing it. And I record it, and then so I can listen to it. So I'm building trust with my own voice. And that's what I do with my clients too.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I talk about is this whole know, like, trust. I call it BS, but it's because it's backwards in my mind. And this goes to your point of learning to trust ourselves. So if we're asking people to get to know, like, and trust us as the business owner, when they don't even know, like, and trust themselves, or we don't even know, like, and trust who they are, which in my world, the message people, is just a reflection of that old version of us, right? So we need to get to know, like, and trust ourselves. And that's that key part, is if we're not trusting ourselves first, how can we learn to trust the clients that we want to serve? And then how could they, since we're holding that space and showing them how to do that, learn to trust us to serve them? It starts with us, coming back to your point. So important to build that inner trust. You also mentioned self-love and forgiveness, which has been a running pattern over the last few days. So I'm glad it came up again, because I'm pretty sure it'll keep coming up the rest of this week. Can you speak a little more to the self-love and the forgiveness? What does that mean in your business? Like, how does that help you run a better business?
So forgiving yourself, right? Years and most of my life, I shouldn't say most of my life, but a very long period of time, I would just be filled with regrets and replaying it over and over again. And finally, and I felt, often people think that they've dealt with their forgiveness of that person who may have have harmed you or something, or forgive yourself. But okay, so there's two parts. It's forgiving others and forgiving yourself. So they're both essential in growth and expansion, I believe. But making resolution with it, and it's not easy. I have a whole process that we go through, but truly making resolution with it. And often what I was trying to say was we think we have already dealt with it and it's put away nice, but it really hadn't been, for me anyway. And I've written about this, and it's making resolution with my molester. And literally over the past few years, I finally have detached myself, and I can talk about it now and not get emotional. So I've literally detached myself from it, and I have found the blessing. And I know this sounds funny. If I found the blessing out of that situation. So I always try and find the good in any situation. I'm not saying that I forgave. I'm not forgiving him for what he did necessarily. I'm forgiving myself for replaying it over and over again and taking up so much of my energy and time and space that could have been spent elsewhere. I'm forgiving myself for that. And I feel that when you can get to that, and there's, like I said, this is the very short version, but it's trying, you know, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't gone through that. It was a lifelong process because I didn't even remember it until I was an adult.
Mm.
I had my first flashback. So it had been like, you know, a whole life of, you know, that whole trauma, but literally trauma, right? If we don't forgive, we don't get rid of the trauma that's literally in our cells, in our body, right? That's keeping us congested and keeping us limited. I had no idea. I didn't even have a normal gait because I slept with my hands over my chest and my legs crossed every night, that I would wake up tight. Like after I would walk to the bathroom, I'd be able to walk fine, but it would be like, you know, no wonder I couldn't dance, right? Like everybody else. No wonder I couldn't express myself. I was always munged up. And so now I'm taking salsa dancing and line dancing lessons and my hips can move. And it's just so amazing and freeing. And yeah, when you literally really let go. And I used to say, what the heck, let go? What does that even mean? What does grounded mean? I want to be those things, but I don't even know what that means, you know?
Oh, that was 2 main points that you really hit. I thought I dealt with that. No. And then the second part was, I remember spending years thinking, everybody's telling me to let go. I have no idea what this means, no idea what it looks like. Just somebody tell me. And I think it was 6 years that I spent trying to figure this out, because I thought of forgiveness, just as you said, where I thought it meant forgiving the other person for what they did, when really it's just saying, I've spent enough time looking at this. Remember that whole back and forth, and I'm ignoring the things that I love and I'm busy over here. I forgive myself for the time that I've spent looking this way. I'm done. I am choosing now to go back to my loving family and friends and things that I want. A whole other feel.
Mm.
Donna, we have about 3-ish minutes left as I'm trying to coordinate the next person. Where do we find you? How do we get a hold of you?
So my website is evokechangecenter.com, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. It's all Donna Laitinen. Yeah. So, and anybody who's listening, I do offer a free complimentary activation experience, a higher frequency activation experience. So if anybody would like to do that, that's like my thing. I love it. I shine there. Yeah, I would love it. I would love it. Yeah. So thank you. I love having the opportunity to share.
I would love it. That's what I was saying while I was muted. Where's my sign? I'm on mute. I just didn't want to be noisy. I don't remember. Just to make sure, was there anything that you wanted to make sure that you said before the end of the interview?
I usually like to leave people with just something very simple. And it's, don't expect a great day, create one.
Aww. I love that.
Yeah, it's so simple, but it's so true. Like,
yeah.
I do a lot of big expectations, but
yeah.
I love that I'm the creator of my day. I can choose. Yeah.
I'm going to tell a quick story before I let you go.
Okay.
When I was going through my first PTSD, when my daughter was about 2 years old, she invented something with a good day cookie. So one day I came home from work and I walked in the door. She said, "Mommy, how was your day?" And I said, good. She's like, like that was the wrong answer. So she shoved her hand into her pocket. She pulled her hand back out. She gave me her fist, and then she opened it up, and there was nothing in it. But she was like, this is a good day cookie. And she wanted me to eat it. She like shoved it in my face. And you have to do the sound. So it's like, rum, 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 rum. Like the whole 2-year-old playfulness sound. And she's like, now you'll have a good day. Just this imaginary cookie. So then we created this whole imaginary cookie called the Good Day Cookie, which is exactly what you were mentioning. It is a choice to choose how you feel. And that imaginary cookie is just a reminder of the things that you have planned to choose, or that you choose in this moment to say, I want to feel good. I can feel good with just a choice.
Right.
Aww, that's so cute. Now she's 13. It's not as cute, but I like where it came from. So thank you so much, Donna, for being here. And
Thank you.
Necklace is just like, look at me.
I know.
I love it. Love it.
I do too.
Yeah. Will you message me behind the scenes and we will do that? Like,
I will.
yeah.
I will. Let's do
Okay.
that now.
Much love. Thank you so much.
Okay, you
We're
too.
gonna bring our next guest up. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
You're welcome. And our next guest is here. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear us. I just want to make sure. And I'm going to mute Lana for a moment. Good. I'm learning all the buttons as we go. Welcome to the stage, Diane.
Good morning.
Reminder for everyone, this is day 3 of bLU Talks. And we have lots of different guests. Lana is just taking a moment for herself. She is my co-host for today. And one of the questions that we're doing to be a little different than the first 2 days is I am asking you, what would be 3 words that you would love people to describe you as?
Oh my!
I know,
describe me
on the
as on the spot. I think authentic would be number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Kind, and I don't know. Maybe fearless.
Ooh, that's a different one.
Pulling some different ones out there because I'm working on that right now of just jumping into new things, right? I've always been a person that's sort of held my cards very close. So, it's like getting into this whole speaking thing and doing all these podcasts and everything. And I'm going to put that out there. Fearless. Okay, let's be fearless and just jump in and do this. So we'll use that word for today.
I do like that word. I want to know where the authentic and kind came from first.
Authentic, because that's to me is the most important thing. I think having respect for oneself, having respect for the people. One thing that I told my kids growing up all the time, I always told them, if I teach you nothing else in this world, it's respect. I said, respect for yourself, respect for other people, and respect for things that God has put on this earth for us to enjoy. So, and if you can do that, everything else kind of falls into place. And I think to have respect, you have to be authentic. I think to have respect, you have to, be who you are. And that means to yourself and to other people. So, yeah, it's important for me to be authentic. And doing this work, right? Doing the work that we do, I think it's important to be authentic. I think it's important. And I think people see through it if you're not. So I try to, to portray that all the time. And then kindness, of course, I think just being kind is, we can be authentic in a very brutal way sometimes, because we have to remember to be kind as well, because sometimes people just aren't at the space to hear what we know to be true for them, or what we think we know to be true for them. So I think that comes with kindness too. I think as practitioners in the world that I circulate in, all too often I see people want to express what they know without taking in. And I think your guest just before this was talking about, seeing the other person's point of view. So I think if we do everything, take that pause and be kind, and know that what we're doing is coming from a place of being authentic, but being kind, then I think it'll always work out, regardless of the subject matter.
Exactly. Like I love these words because then I really get to know how you see yourself and how you would like people to see you. Because as we mentioned earlier today a couple times, it's not about how your business is today. Because we're all entrepreneurs here. It's about how you're going to express it tomorrow and express it the next week and next year and next 5 years, which is still going to be rooted in you. So getting to know the human being behind the business to me is so important. So that's why, like, I'll bounce back and forth between tell me about yourself and your question because I want to know that fearless piece. I want to explore that and like playfully tease out of you some of the things you mentioned that you wanted to do more speaking. Is that something that you're uncomfortable with right now and that you're practicing to be fearless with?
Speaking about things that I know, I love to speak all things spirit. If we're talking about spirituality, if we're talking about grief, those things I can talk all day on.
Mm-hmm.
I really can. The speaking part is, I've had this drive for the longest time to put myself out there, and I've always felt ever since I was little that I had something to say, and I had something that people not only wanted to hear, but that I think could help some people. So it's just standing in the power of that now and going, okay, I'm ready. I'm mature enough. I'm, I'm well over 50. We're going to do this. Now's the time to get on this, and jump in. And I think it just came from experience. And, we always laugh and say, as we get older, we have more experience. And I think that's really important to build up. Not that young people can't do things as well, but I think just that, because some young people, I know my children have been through enough, that they've got a lot of experience in their back pocket as well. So they could talk about a lot of things that maybe 60-year-olds wouldn't have experience in. So, it's not just age, but I think experience and different things happening in your lives make you more in tune to the world around you and able to speak about them. But yeah, I love talking all things spirit. I have no problem spending hours talking about spirit.
One of the phrases I have is to speak from your sparkle. So it's about exactly that. It's what are those things that light you up, that you can't help but share, that you get so excited about, that you feel your energy, just as Donna was talking about, like love and above. You're just vibrating at such a high frequency that you can't help but attract all of this loveliness around you. That's what it means to speak from your sparkle. And you can always tell with somebody's eyes when they're speaking from their sparkle. So then what is your topic? Like, what is that big message that you have for people that you want to share?
Well, I'm an energy interpreter. A lot of people like
Okay.
the word psychic medium, but I like the word energy interpreter. I interpret energy. That's at the basis of everything that I do. But I really focus on guiding people through grief towards joy. And I had a son pass away the middle of my 3 sons years ago to a tragic accident. So I come from a place of knowing. I come from a place of experience again. So and doing the work that I do as an energy interpreter, as a psychic medium, I do a lot of readings for people who just aren't able to move past their grief and move through their grief. And I'm not saying that you need to let it go, but I mean, that's a whole conversation in itself. But I really, really like to, at the end of a reading, give people hope that they can connect with their loved ones, not just through a medium, but on a daily basis. It's really important. I was given a gift the day that my son passed, that it's easy for me to stand up and shout to the world that there is life after death. I have no problem saying, I know that our loved ones continue on and that they're around us all the time. They're interested in what we do. They're interested in being a part of our lives, regardless of where they are in vibration, because we're all energy, we're all vibration. So really it's about that, right? And I love to just teach people or show people, give them validations that their loved ones are continuing on, even though they've left their physical bodies. The day my son passed, I was able to see his spirit rise from his body in the room, in the emergency room when he passed after the accident. And being given that, like I say, it really was a gift because I need proof. I'm that person that loves validation and I love proof. So I was given proof that day. I was given that validation. I saw my son's spirit rise from his body. I got to watch it hover and say goodbye to me and then dissipate. So I was given that opportunity, and I really feel like I was given that for a reason. And the reason is to show and teach and try to validate for other people that our loved ones do continue on, that even though they're beautiful vehicles that they worked in this world, their physical vehicles is gone, that they continue on and that they're interested. They're around us all the time. They're not sitting on a cloud somewhere. They're not way over there doing something else. They're right here with us. So that's my passion. And that's what I really like to do.
One of my favorite experiences was, I mean, it's like fun, and at the same time, like I have a tear in my eye. I had lost my cat, my therapy cat, a couple years ago, just before Christmas. And my husband is very much a skeptic when it comes to all of this stuff. He's like, anything that is slightly woo, he's like, well, hold him for it. He's his own person. Great. There was one day my daughter was in her room, and her door and my door basically faced the same way. And my husband was in the living room. So there's two doors here that can look at the main entrance. My husband was walking down the hall, which could also look at the main entrance. All three of us at the same time we thought we all saw the dead cat go down the hall and jump into the dryer. So all three of us, without even seeing the other person, went to the doorway and went, did you see? And we had that moment of just, dang, skeptic husband or not, was like, we have a ghost cat in our house who likes to be in our dryer. And we did feel exactly that. We felt as though he's trying to be a part of our lives and explore what's new too, but also
of course.
Yeah.
There's no limitations for them in spirit. That's a thing that we get wrong, I think, because we are so limited as we create limitations in our physical worlds. Have to be careful with that. So we are not limited, but we create limitations in our physical world. And we have to remember that they don't have those limitations. As soon as their physical body and their spiritual body separate, they no longer have the physical emotions and denseness that we have as physical beings and limitations. They can be in several places at one time. They can focus their energy all over the place. They can be with us and be doing other things. They can focus their energy in a multitude of activities and be around us. And they're not missing a thing. That's what I want to tell. They're not missing a thing.
So interesting. Lana, do you have any experience with any of this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My daughter and I, I first began to experience this type of thing, because I was a pastor's wife for 30 years. It wasn't done right. But when I started to open to my spiritual gifts, and my daughter was on this journey along with me, we were living together. She's an adult. And so we had moved into this house, which was an old house, and we had no idea who lived there before or anything, except for we knew that the landlord's parents used to live there years before. And I was downstairs in my room, and my daughter was upstairs in her room. Now, we had a house clearing, had someone come in to clear the spirits. She said that there was an old man that was in my daughter's room that was like, he's very polite. There's nothing, he's very nice. Don't worry about it. But he's just there. That must have been his room at some point. Well, I was, we were in our respective bedrooms. We were dressing to go out. And I heard so clearly this man's voice saying, "That's okay. I like the basement." And I went to the foot of the stairs and I called up to my daughter. I just heard a man say, "That's okay. I like the basement." And she came out and she said, "Yeah, I was feeling really nervous. If he's in my room and I'm dressing." And I just sat out in the room. I said, "Do you mind leaving and going to the basement?" And he said to me, "That's okay. I like the basement."
I love that. I love that so much because it shows that we do have control. And I work with younger people, and that's one of the things I teach them. And any practitioner that's doing this work, I'm like, don't do it if you don't have control of it. We have control. You know, we are our own person. We have free will, and we can decide who we connect with, dead or alive. So I think it's really important to set those boundaries. And, you know, I had that experience when I first started doing mediumship, where every time I got into the shower, somebody was standing in my bathroom. And I think it's because I was cleansing and getting ready for my day, doing this ritual. And I'm standing there, and, I see a dog, and I'd be like, okay, everybody out. This is my space. I get some time, right? So I think it's important to have that space and those boundaries, and to be able to say. And people ask me all the time, one story when my husband and I were out having dinner one day, and this was just after I started professionally doing mediumship. And he goes, so you could read that waitress over there? I'm like, absolutely, but I'm not going to. And he's like, well, why? And I said, because it's none of my business, and I'm not doing that right now, right? And it's like, no, I'm not going to. Yes, I can focus my attention to somebody, and I can get, into their space, but why would I do that any more than I do just normal people? When you're having a conversation for somebody, of course, you're going to pick up on intuitive things about them if you're highly active. There's days that I just am blank and I don't want to do anything. And then there's days that where I'm hypersensitive to things, but that's in my control. I get to raise and lower my vibration. I get to focus my attention just like I do in any conversation. It's an expansion, an extension of the conversations that I'm having. When I do mediumship, that's what I'm doing. I'm focusing my attention. I'm getting in there a little bit deeper, and focusing my attention on their vibration a little bit more, and getting to where I need to be to have the conversation that we're having. But I think it's important to have boundaries. I think it's important to have control and know that you have control. I think there's too many people running around out there that are just, leaving it open and then feeling like they're forced to have conversation or do things that they don't need to be doing. They have control.
Can I ask Diane, do you do healing work as well, or do you just do readings?
It's a funny thing because I'm a level 3 Usui Reiki master. I took the course just to speak the language of Reiki. I knew I would never do Reiki. I'm a talker, as you can tell. I love to have conversations. So my healing comes more for just, I love analogies. I know, Laura, you love analogies. I do a lot of healing work through speaking, I think more so than shifting energy and that kind of thing. I think during my readings, quite often there's a lot of energy shift. I do counseling or spiritual counseling. I can do one-on-one, that kind of thing, and help people just discover the world of spirit more so. And I think that helps heal with their healing process, but no, not as far as hands-on, like, those modalities. I'm not much into those.
I know that there can be a lot of fear when somebody goes into something like, I want to make sure I get your words right, energy interpretation. How did you transition? Like, how was that experience for you to just be open about it?
Well, funny thing, after I lost my son, I was looking for everything I could on, this was 24 years ago that my son passed. So it's been a while. And back then there was John Edwards was on TV with a show called Crossing Over. I don't know. He's a very famous medium. Yeah. He had Crossing Over, and it was on from 5 to 5:30 every day. So my son passed in 99. And he was on every day at 5 to 5:30. So he kind of became my church for a while. I was just like, I want to do that. That looks really cool. That would be great to be able to speak to him so consciously. Mm-hmm. So I really, I loved that he was on there. He shifted my energy during that time, and he helped me during that time. And I just was interested in it. So I started looking for everything I could, reading everything I could. At that time, it was Sylvia Brown, Doreen Virtue, Dr. Wayne Dyer, like all these people were out there, but it was a very limited group, right? Of authors and people out there doing this work. Not people doing this work, people putting it out there that they were doing this work.
There you
So, I looked for everything I could, and I read everything I could just to learn the language of spirit, and not from a religious indoctrination, but just sort of an open new age. I always say new age of new age kind of thing. I really was, because of my psychic abilities, I would read something and I go, nah, don't believe that. Oh yeah, I do believe that. Oh, that makes sense to me. And I always say, the Bible has some holes in it that I couldn't fill. Spirituality, the new age had holes in it I couldn't fill. So then I just started to go sort of within and go, what do I believe? What am I getting out of this? And what do I know to be true? And so my intuition just started building and building. And then it was a few years after Travis, that's my son, passed, that I saw that there was a lady coming to a town near a city close to me, and she was doing a mediumship workshop. And I thought, well, I'm just going to do this. I want to learn some more, right? I'm learning everything I can. So I went to the workshop that weekend. After the first night, the first day of the workshop, I'm thinking during it, well, I can do that. I do that all the time. And I couldn't figure out when she was talking about it, why this was different. At breakfast the next morning, I met up with some of the people in the workshop, and they're all talking about, oh, I do this during my practice. And I asked one of the girls, I said, doesn't everybody do that? And she's like, oh, honey, you don't know that you're a medium. And I went, what? So I was like, okay. So, I realized I had that epiphany at that time that I was doing this my whole life. I just didn't realize that other people couldn't. And it got me in a lot of trouble. I'll have to tell you, being a know-it-all when you're young, it's not the most fun place to be. People have a tendency to be standoffish. They think you're playing the devil's advocate all the time because why are you always so negative? Well, can't you see what's happening here? Be on a hockey board or a school board and see mandates and things that people are doing behind the scenes. It's a really difficult place to be because you're sitting there and you're going, you're saying things and people are going, why are you being so negative? And it's like, well, can't you see what's happening here? Because I was always 3 steps ahead. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until I went to that course that I realized, okay, I do this already. And it is different than other. My husband always said that. He goes, Diane, you see things differently. Or Diane, that you're very intuitive. Diane, that you look at things from a broader perspective. So he's, so great to have as a partner. Wow. Because he saw that. And so that's really how I got into it and how I started. So I came home after that weekend and just put on Facebook, guess what, guys? This is what I'm doing. This is who I am. If you want a reading, I'm going to be practicing. If you don't agree with this, feel free to delete me, friends and family. And I just put it out there. I had over 40 people message me within the first few days. I did over 40 free readings right away within the first month or two. Like I jumped in with both feet, and, my community really, people that I never expected would have ever reached out. So I did a lot of readings in those first little bit and really got my, feet under me and confidence in what I was doing. And been going steady since.
Okay, so engagement time for the audience. Anybody listening on the live or the replay, this is what I want you to do. If there's something that you have been wanting to start in your life or your business, some sort of goal, just as Diane had mentioned, and you would like to dive in with 2 feet, like just let us know in the comments what that is.
Yeah,
just we might be a little bit of accountability for you.
Right?
Like let the world know. Diane,
and I think by putting it out there too, you're not only are you telling yourself, I'm worthy of doing this, you're putting it out there and you're saying, this is non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. Like when I did it and I just said, this is what I'm doing, like it or not, and I put it out there, I was telling everybody, I'm stepping into this. Yeah. If you don't like it, feel free to remove yourself from my feed. Feel free. And that's where Facebook's so awesome, or any kind of, Instagram, whatever you do it on, is so amazing because you're not speaking one-to-one, but you're speaking one-to-one to everybody. So you're telling people, this is what I'm doing, like it or not. This is who I am. Figure it out. if you want to be part of the process, if you want to be part of my journey, then you're more than welcome to get a hold of me, and let's do this, and let's play, and let's practice, and let's have a good time. If you're not, then that's okay too. That's okay too. I can handle that. But be prepared to handle that. Be prepared that if people say, I don't believe what you're doing. Okay, awesome. I always tell people, I've only had a couple people, and maybe it's because I'm such a strong personality that I haven't had any backlash. I've only had a couple people formally tell me, I don't believe what you do. I don't believe in what you're doing. And I just lovingly tell them, we'll have that discussion when we're both dead. It's okay. I don't need to argue for it. I don't need to have a conversation about it now. We'll talk about it when we're both dead.
It reminds me a little bit of like when somebody's a vegetarian and somebody's not. Do you go to the vegetarian's house and complain that they don't have any meat? No. You know what their belief system is, and
exactly
you're into it by hanging out with them. But that doesn't mean that you go to their house and you yell at them for being a vegetarian. Like,
yeah, but expect it. And depending on your personality, there's some people that live in and are surrounded by family, friends that will say exactly what they feel. A lot of people don't. I know people are having conversations about me in my community, around me and about me. They're not coming to me, so I'm not worried about it, right? If they feel strongly enough about it, they can come to me and have a conversation. And like I said, we'll have a conversation until we can't. And or continue that conversation, but it's none of my business what they're talking about me. That's their business. And I find that for the most part, people that are having issue with it, it's not about me anyway.
No.
A lot of them are scared that I'm going to know something that I shouldn't about them. Trust me, that happens.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I read people's eyes, and it's the same thing. They're like, oh my God, what can you see? I was like, I could see a lot, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you everything that
like I said, it's none of my business, in communities, especially if, there's things going on that people don't want you to know about. And I'm like, it's none of my business. I don't care. Yes, I could know, I could tune into that, but and that's where I guess I'm saying I want to be authentic. I want to be respectful, and I choose not to speak outside of class kind of thing. This is, and to, I always have permission before I share stories, or I share stories that you can't relate to one person or another. I'm careful to do that. And I hope that I do that all the time. So I think I've done enough readings. I've done well over 1,000 readings now. So I've done enough that people know that they can trust when they come to me, that their story is not going to be shared. And so, so I get a lot of people now. Some people sneak in the door and don't want people to know that I'm reading them or reading for them. And a lot of people are out there, just keeping quiet that they've come to see me for readings, but that's okay too. It's okay too. That part's none of my business.
No. I'm pretty sure it's the same for you, but when I read somebody's eyes, there's different layers to it. So like the first layer is as if it's like clothes that you're wearing. Everybody can see the clothes that you're wearing unless they're looking away. But then beyond that, there's deeper and deeper. If I start having to open doors or windows or look behind walls or something, that's when I feel as though I need your consent for that.
Exactly.
I don't want to dig deeper. Yeah. Okay.
And that's the respect part of it. And I think to be a good practitioner and to be successful in this business, people have to feel that you respect their privacy, that you respect them as a person, and that you don't cross those boundaries.
So you had mentioned, okay, I want to know different ways of how you like to share this message. So do you write books? Are you on stages? I know
I do. I have a book.
You're here. Oh yeah, show it right to the camera.
About a Blue Angel.
Blue Angel.
It's about a Blue Angel. This is my story about my son and his incident and how he works with me now. So when I do readings, my son Travis now works with me full on, especially when I do readings for parents who have lost children. He's always in the room and he's always there. And quite often when I do readings for people, if they're really open, they can feel him too. And they get messages. And I'll quite often get people get a hold of me afterwards and say, oh my gosh, I think Travis came and told me this, or Travis told me that. So he works with a lot of people. He likes to do the work too. So yeah, I work with and do a lot of readings. I teach workshops. My favorite workshop to teach is a beginner psychic workshop that I call Awaken the Light Within. And it's like I say, a beginner psychic workshop, but I just play with all different kinds of modalities. It's a very hands-on workshop where we practice and play with energy. You know, I have energy rods, pendulums, angel charm casting. I'm doing a charm casting class tonight in my little town here. So I try to fill 2 days in this workshop of just having people look for auras and just try to find their superpower when it comes to connecting and expanding their connection to spirit in all different kinds of modalities, because some people do better at some things than others. So we explore over the 2 days a lot of different modalities so that some people really are drawn to one thing than another. So I love doing that class. And then I have a advanced mediumship class called Mastering Your Connection. And that one, usually people that go through my beginner psychic go to the advanced one, but you don't need to if you feel that you're well spoken with energy. So I have that workshop as well. It's a 2-day workshop. And that one we really delve into mediumship, in connecting to spirit in the now. And seeing who can do it. Some people do it better than others. I always say it's like singing, right? And here's an analogy. It's like singing. We can all do it. Some of us do it badly. Some of us do it well. Some of us are born with the natural ability, and some can be taught technically. Some people are tone deaf, but they can still belt it out. That's okay too, right? So
That's my daughter.
Right? So yeah, we can all make a sound of some sort, so we can all sing. And that's the way people can even sing if they're deaf and they use their hands, right? There's different ways to do it. So let's explore and find your way of connecting. And I think that really helps people to connect with their loved ones that have passed, connect with their pets, connect is just by building their intuition, building their connection in some way, and knowing that there is something beyond this physical life that we live. Right. It's a 2-part thing, it's physical and spiritual, mind, body, soul thing all coming together. So the more that you consciously do, we're doing it anyway. We're all doing it anyway. We're all getting intuitive hits. We're all being source, God, creator, whatever you want to choose, it is guiding us all the time. I just think it's more fun when we do it consciously. When you pick up the phone and can call and say, help me, and then listen for the answer, rather than just sort of going through life and letting it guide you without you really knowing about it. It can just help us, I think.
This makes me think of when I went to Harvard last summer. I did my first talk at Harvard. Well, not my
Good
first.
for you.
My first live talk in years. Was at Harvard. Traveled solo. I had never left Canada before. Like, this was a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot. And like, I bought my plane ticket there without having the money for a plane ticket back. I was that committed. I was like, I'm going. I don't know how I'm getting back. It worked out. But I know. But when I got back, I felt this calm confidence for a week. And then I felt just this overflow of exhaustion, and eventually, I think it was 5 weeks into this complete exhaustion, I was sleeping about 15 hours a day. Like, it was nasty. I figured it out that it was a bunch of my spiritual guides. It felt like they just didn't knock on my door. They just walked into my house, went into the room, started unpacking all of their laundry, and I'm like, I don't even know who you are, let alone why you're in my house and trying to live here without any permission. And it took me a little bit to kind of go, oh, okay, let's start setting some boundaries. Because as you said at the very beginning, we have control over this.
We do.
And I'm thinking of your story, Lana, about the old man saying he's okay with the basement. Yeah. I told all my guides, I was like, look, I don't know you. I didn't ask for you. This is overwhelming. Like, please stay in the guest house until I'm ready to say hello. And they
Well,
did.
exactly. I sat down and actually wrote out a contract when I started
Me
doing
too.
it with my guides.
Mhm.
A physical contract where I was like, I'm a big chicken. I don't like watching horror movies, so I don't want to see anything gross and nasty. I did, and now I've erased that and rewrote it and done all sorts of different things. But I'm that person that I can't even watch scary movies on TV. I can't watch things because I don't want that in my head. I don't want that visualization, so that if I do a reading for somebody that's had something nasty, I don't need to see it in my head. That's just my personal choice. I would rather, and I said, tell me, don't show me. I'm clairvoyant, but my superpower is claircognizance. And so I just get it dropped, the information dropped into my head. I don't need to see it. And so I've set those boundaries. I've asked my guides, please just tell me, don't show me that. I don't want to see it. And then there's times when I'm looking for certain things that I will go more into my clairvoyant energy and want to see things and can expand from there. So you have total control. It's just learning what you want, knowing what you want, figuring it out. Because you might be telling spirit, I don't want that. I don't want that. I'm scared of that. And then wondering why you can't get it. Right? If you're sitting there and you're a medium and you're saying, I'm scared to see ghosts, but I want to see spirit, well, they're the same thing. Right? So you have to make that and go, I don't want to see negative things. Tell me in a different way, but I want to connect with spirit, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. So you have to really sit down and think about it. And you have to really sit down and know yourself enough to know, what do I believe and what do I want? And do the work. You do the work and it's amazing what can come. I have to tell you, I was meditating a lot when this all really came about. So I was ready. I was meditating day and night. Like I was, we would go, my kids were in hockey and I'd be traveling and my husband would be driving and I would just close my eyes and go into meditation. Like I was doing it a really hyper amount at that time. So when I did jump in, I was ready. I was seeing things. I was ready for this all to kind of, unfold for me in a perfect way. And that to me is the most important thing. I go through periods where I only have time to meditate a very small amount, and I can tell it doesn't give me, I don't do as well as when I am meditating all the time. So it's a job too. It's important to do the work. And if you want to do this work, then it's like anything else. You have to show up. You have to show up and put the time in where it matters. And if I can tell you anything, that's where it matters. Meditating, quieting your mind, getting to a place where spirit can reach you, not just that you want. I always tell people wanting and receiving are two different energies. If you're constantly wanting, but not willing to shut up and listen, you'll never receive. And I get that. My guides tell me that. I'll hear that literally in my head. Shut up, Diane. Shut up and listen. Okay. So I know. So I'll sit down and just go, okay. And I just receive and receive. Because you get on that path where you just want, and forget to allow the reception of it. So,
yeah, my body just makes me yawn. And then when I yawn, I tear. And then my eyes start to burn. And it's my body going, are you paying attention yet? Are you paying attention now? We have a message for you. And I'm like, I'm kind of busy at the moment.
I know. For me, my nose starts to get tickly. So I'm like always Kleenex around, or I'm always going, okay. Yeah. Especially I find when I'm driving, I used to think maybe I was allergic to my steering wheel or something, because every time I drove, my nose would get incredibly itchy. And I'm like, what is going on? Or I'd stop and, I'm in Canada, so I stop and grab a Tim's coffee and I'm like, I'm allergic to the coffee. Like, what's happening here? But I started recognizing after doing this work that I know exactly what it is. It's spirits coming in and sort of trying to get my attention, so that my nose was always itchy. And I'm like, okay, now I know what this is. It's like, so then sometimes when I'm driving, I'll just pull over and have a little conversation. Okay, what do I need to know? And then my nose will stop itching.
Okay, your body. I will pay attention to the message that you have after the show. Give me an hour. Yawning is annoying. Okay.
Too funny.
I know. It's
Sometimes,
so
you know, and I'll say spirit will make you stub your toe, and if you don't listen, they'll break your leg. Like you cannot ignore them for too long, because it will come out in different ways, right?
I hit a telephone pole. So yeah.
Right?
On a bicycle. Yeah.
It happens. And then people always, you know, come out of that and go, I don't know why these things happen to me. Well, I do. You're not paying attention to your own life. Be an active participant in your own life. Figure this out, right? And
I like to describe it as like a little 6-year-old. It's like, mom, mom,
Yeah.
mommy. And they'll just keep doing it until you acknowledge them. They just keep getting worse.
right.
So like
Right.
just acknowledge, yes, or I'll have time in 30 minutes. Wait till the clock hits whatever.
Yeah.
Which is
Exactly.
some sort of acknowledgement. And I went years without acknowledging. So then the universe was like, we're going to make you narrowly miss an SUV and had a telephone pole instead. Awakened
And why do you
enough?
think so many people are having issues right now with their energy? So many people are having anxiety. So many people, and we're blaming it on COVID, or we're blaming it on things that are happening. And there's only so much of that. Yes, that is true. But it also stopped us all in our tracks enough that we were listening for a minute, right?
Yeah.
We all sort of shut off what was going
Went
on
a little.
around us, and we went inside a little bit.
Mhm.
And so then all these things started happening, and people weren't taking the time to spiritually get in touch with that. You know, we were all living in fear, or people were living in fear about what was going on. I wasn't one of them, but people were living in fear about what was going on, and, you know, created things that weren't there, and created, you know, this mass sort of anxiety, which created it for everybody. So now, you know, people are, I feel like the energy is shifting now. People are starting to say, enough of this. Let's get back to life. Let's get back to enjoying life. Let's get back to stepping away from our fear and getting out into the world. And they're doing it with a new vibration and a new energy. And they're going, this isn't me. I don't recognize this person. I don't recognize who I've become. And so it's going to take a while here for people to shift and to realize that this is their new normal, that they have evolved in some way, they have expanded, they have, you know, moved through to a different vibration, lower or higher, and they have to get used to that. If they've gone higher, it can come out as anxiety, because if your vibration lifts, then you feel like you're off balance, or you feel like you're just, you know, all over the place. And people have to recognize at that point that this is who I am now. So let's just get our feet under us and get our balance here. And it will become their new normal. It will become comfortable for them in that space too. But too many people, I think right now, are just sort of struggling with that new vibration. So it'll take time. People will settle.
I remember just people calling this the new normal. It reminds me of every time I've gotten to my next level, my new normal, and how I would always have grief around who I used to be. I'm like, is this normal? Is it normal to grieve for myself?
Well, it was comfortable. It was comfortable to be in that space, right? You got used to where you were.
Yeah.
I call it leveling up.
Oh yeah.
I level
I
up.
do now.
I level up. You level up. You level up, right? And so when it happens to me now, and I get this leveling up or these downloads, I'm just like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Next. Like, this is fun. So, and anxiety and excitement are so close on the vibrational scale, right? Like they're very different, but they can feel the same. So a lot of times people, when they're feeling anxious, they're misinterpreting it. It's actually excitement for what's coming. It's excitement for, you know, that's those people that can't leave their house because they're like anxious. Well, are you anxious, or is your body just excited because it's going for a walk? It's getting outside. So you have to figure that out, right? And tune your energy and get excited about things in life, and not just sit and think that, oh, I'm feeling my heart race. This must be anxious. I must be anxiety, you know, full of anxiety. I better just stop. Well, it might not be that. Sometimes it is. I'm not saying that people don't have anxiety truly and fully, and there are people that are going through things, but I think too often we misdiagnose that. I think we need to get excited about our lives a little bit more.
Definitely. So Diane, where do we find you? How do we get in contact with you?
DianeQuartly.com. I have a webpage you can go to on Facebook, Diane Quartly. I have Diane Quartly Energy Interpreter as a page on Facebook, but most people just get me on my personal page. So it's easier.
We all have that.
Yeah, we all have that. So that's where I go. Yeah, we have, like I say, on my webpage has everything that you need to get in contact with me, see where all my courses, all my stuff is.
Okay. So we have, okay, give me about 30 seconds. Is there any sort of final comments that you have just to leave people with something?
You know, if I had to leave you with something, I would just say, enjoy your life. My tagline, love, create, and enjoy your life. That's really what it's about. Love your life. Find a way to love your life. Find a way to create your life. Know you have choices every single day, how you show up. You have choices every single day of what you do. Too many of us feel like life is happening to us and not realizing that we're making choices. We're getting up every day. We have a choice whether we get out of bed. We have a choice whether we go to work. Certainly there's consequences for not doing those things, but they are our choice. What we do is our choice. And I think as soon as we take responsibility for our own lives and become active participants in our own lives, and we start choosing things consciously, our lives can be so much better. And you will love your life. You will enjoy your life. And to me, that's the most important. That's what we're here for. We're here to enjoy the contrast of all these wonderful things that our lives give us, regardless of what we've been through. I've been through a tragedy. I've had, I felt like my life was over when my son passed. The day of his death was the hardest day of my entire life, but it was also put me on this path of knowing and knowledge and seeking and looking at life through a different lens. And so I think tragedy can do that for us too. So life is happening for us, not just to us. So enjoy it.
Definitely.
Enjoy every step.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us, Diane, and letting us get to see you a little bit. So, thank you. Have a wonderful day. We will catch you later. You're more than
thanks
welcome
so much
behind the scenes if you want.
Perfect.
Okay, we are going to bring up our next guest, Brittany. Can you hear me in the background, Brittany? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Great. Okay, she will be joining us as our last guest of the day for day 3. And Lana, I'm going to pick you a little bit, and I'll get you to start the questions this time.
I don't even know what Brittany does.
Me neither.
Okay.
That's the best part. I used to research people, and now I'm just like, we're good. I'll start with my curiosity. Welcome to the screen, Brittany.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for being here, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'll let Lana start us off.
Well, today hi, Brittany. Nice to see you. Today we're starting off with, what 3 words would you use to describe yourself?
To describe myself as my dogs decide to bark at the right opportune time.
Always, yes.
Resilient,
Mm-hmm.
permissive, and integrity.
Okay. And when you say resilient, where did that come from?
Resiliency is, I would say, my middle name at this point. Beginning about 10 years ago, I decided to surrender my entire life to God's source energy because I was dealing with alcoholism. And so I made it a point to let that go and give up. And that presented quite a bit of challenge in my life prior for 10 years straight. And then when I did give up the alcohol, I still had to deal with all the other pieces of my life that were crumbling. And so I have scratched and clawed to literally be alive. And no matter how many times I get kicked down, I still get back up. And it's a choice. I choose to get up, stand up on my own 2 feet, and push forward.
I'm going to celebrate you right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Every time we get beat down, we're like, should I just stay here? And I know many people at home or work who are listening or watching, they relate to that moment of maybe I should just stay down. I could use the rest. But then getting back up, do we ever? Do we want to? Is it worth it? Yeah. So was it worth it to keep getting back
been
up?
worth it. Yes. Every moment, every minute. I've been able to grow in love and light, and not only that, but start a family, have a wonderful daughter, and the life that I always was dreaming about that I didn't know that I could create without surrender.
Ooh, that's another key word that's been coming up all week is surrender.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like for you?
I think it looks in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, whenever I get caught up in story in my head or try to control a certain situation, like potty training, or the person in front of me cuts me off, driving, I can't control these people, people, places, and things. So how can I let that go and let God take care of it? Because it's not my responsibility to go out of my way to change anyone else or the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And so can you surrender? Can you let that go and only choose to worry about the present moment where you're at versus worrying about where you're at 10 years from now?
I could relate to that.
Yeah.
Countless moments where you're just, I want to plan when I'm in anxious mode. I want to plan every detail because that's what makes me feel safe. But at the same time, when I'm anxious, my execution is not so great. So I never know where I'm going to end up, which just compounds the anxiety.
Sure.
Yeah. So then tell us, what is it that you do? What is your message that you're trying to share with the world?
Cool. I am Brittany Young, and I am an executive sales coach for female financial experts and professionals who are looking to use a permission-based way of selling so they can make more money and work less.
When you say permission-based selling, what does that mean?
So there's a difference between the way that women in particular in the financial industry have been taught how to sell versus the way that I am able to teach them in a different new way. And most of us come from a very masculine way of being taught how to sell. Show your product first, kind of like poker, right? Show your hand, put all your cards out on the table. It's a flush, and if it's not a flush, move on. And we often do that when we're in our selling masculine way of being, where we want to present what we have, and the other person is either a yes or a no. So permission-based selling is really about consent over convincing. I'm not trying to convince you to buy what I'm offering. What I'm getting you to do in your own way is be willing to have an exchange, right? So it's a consensual exchange. And it's really about the person that we're selling to. Can we create a beautiful relationship with them and really come from a place of service rather than pushing products, pushing services, and pushing ourselves onto that other person?
I use the phrase courageous connection because it has that same kind of feeling. I deal with people's stories, not financial products. But it has that same feel. We want to create a relationship with the human being, because my definition of heart-centered business is human beings trying to help other human beings to be the human beings that they want to become.
Yes.
And if we're trying to help them do that, then we need to understand what that means. And if it's my product, oh, great. If it's not my product, then I would love to refer you to somebody else who would be better suited, because I'm excited to just be part of the process. And because I know that some of those people are going to choose me because I'm right for them. But that it never stops that relationship.
Right.
Now, if you're having that conversation with someone and they're knowing, liking, trusting you, all of that kind of stuff, but the relationship first, they're going to come back to you, Brittany. Be like, oh, okay, I'm looking for this now. Is this something that you do? No? Oh, dang. Okay. But you know somebody, right? And you're like,
Yes.
yeah, I totally know somebody.
Yeah, I often say that sales is human to human connection, heart to heart connection. It's not product to human or product to product. It's human beings looking to build that relationship, build that trust, and then build that confidence that you can deliver on the service that you're providing. And within the financial industry or money, because it is so emotional for people who decide, hey, I really do want to work with this financial advisor or planner, it is an emotional connection. So that's the foundation of my work, is how can I help women build that emotional connection first within themselves, so that they can then build it within their clientele.
Okay. That part I loved, because you know how I just said no, like, and trust, and I did this earlier. It's because I challenge that. Because it's exactly what you just said. If you want other people to get to know, like, and trust you, you have to start that within yourself first. Because then you can be that foundation to understand, like, to know, like, and trust them for what they need. And then they learn how to do that for themselves, and then naturally do it with you.
Yes.
Again, it's like this whole other feel. It's that permission-based selling instead of the persuasion that feels so icky. That's the icky sales.
Yeah, persuasion is, I'm going to convince you that this is the product that is for you. And there's some gurus out there in sales that say, well, they convince themselves. But if that woman is purchasing from, let's say, a man, because oftentimes it's men running the show in the financial industry. There's a lot of male dominated industries out there. So if we as women go in to purchase from a financial advisor and it's a man, he's going to try to convince you that this is what you need and you need it from him. Right. And the way that I've seen the sales gurus do this is, well, we're not convincing you, you're convincing yourself. But the problem that I have with that is, if I don't feel safe within, I don't trust myself, I'm not going to purchase from anybody, let alone be convinced that this is the product that I need. So it's about that emotional safety first. And that internal safety is key in order for you to sell literally anything.
So how did you get into the financial industry? Is it because of that story that you told us earlier about the alcoholism and getting back up on your feet?
No, and in fact, I've never been in the financial industry. It's just who I work with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a sales consultant and coach, mentor for these women. But how I got into it, my whole background is sales. So I started out in the pharmaceutical industry, worked in the pharma industry for 15 years, did a small stint in oil and gas, running with the big old boys down here in Texas. And then in 2017, made the decision that I was going to surrender working in corporate forever and I wanted to start my own gig. And it wasn't until the end of 2019 into 2020 that this woman came to me. And at the time I was doing business coaching for other coaches. And she was a financial advisor, and she and I had a chat. And after she got off the call with me, she sent me a message and said, I just wrote a book based on our conversation within 10 minutes after we spoke. What does it look like for you to help me? And so I started exploring what that would look like to help somebody in this type of industry. And it just started a ripple effect. It was her first, and then another person came to me 2 months later, so on and so forth. And I decided this is going to be the industry that I market and sell into. And I started seeing the gaps that my particular products began to fill. And it has worked beautifully. And the connections that I've been able to create, the people that I get to serve, their people, that ripple effect, it's very transparent, from helping clients create their own teams to starting companies with them from the ground up, and then helping them increase their income month over month, year over year.
Nice.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who started in selling pharma and sales and just went into other industries. I'm curious as to, like, what does that transition look like? Why am I hearing so many stories like that?
Great question. I think everyone has a personal preference on when they get into sales, what do they want to sell? I know for me, I enjoyed only the money.
Oh, okay.
And I really loved the people that I worked with, but I never fully believed in the products that I was selling. So my exit was due to that. And I could go down that rabbit hole, but we're not here for that today. And that would take a couple hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So then let's go into what we are here for today. We want to know about how you have chosen to amplify your message. So you told us a little bit about your message, about the sales and the permissive based selling, none of this persuasion stuff. Of course, I love that. What are the different ways that you've chosen to share that message? Do you have a book? Are you on stage? You're obviously doing podcasts, so.
Yeah, podcasts. I am in a lot of joint collaborative books.
Yes.
Just a couple of years ago, I joined hands with a friend of mine. Her name is Jessica Verrill, and we wrote a book with, I think, about 15 or 16 other people.
Okay.
And did a joint collaboration on our soul's purpose and soul's calling. And so my chapter was about what we're speaking about today. It's surrender and permission and how to let go, and how I did that within that book. And then the book with Corey and
which number?
Marie Diamond. And
Oh.
really excited for that to come out within the next couple of weeks here. So that's going to be super fun. And I've been on international stages. I spoke at Harvard through Blue Talks.
Woo! Was that the one in January?
Yes.
Yeah, that was I was there too.
And I run group coaching programs as well as work one-to-one. And then I'm also working in the corporate industry with women in the finance space. And so I'm, helping them delegate within their own teams, getting into the corporation, teaching the corporation how to sell correctly out of that old model and now into this new way of selling, and really helping women specifically in the industry, because unfortunately they're few and far between, and that hasn't changed in a little over a decade.
I have a question. Brittany, I had such a strong resistance to selling at the beginning. And If that didn't change until, believe it or not, I was selling hot tubs on a showroom floor. But then I learned to love it because I saw it as being helpful.
Mhm.
So how do you teach women especially? And what would be your perspective on a woman who feels so much resistance to that sales conversation?
Sure. So I created what I call the permission process, which is the whole foundation of the work that I do. And within that process, the very first step is diving into that resistance. Usually it comes from a lack of confidence and a lack of trust inside ourselves. And so I start there. And we go into that exact emotion of what's really going on. Why are you having the resistance? Where did it come from? When did it start? Because I guarantee you, Lana, that it didn't start from that job. It probably started prior.
Mhm.
So, what's the story that you're telling yourself? Why are you experiencing this? Was this something that you experienced in childhood? Can we link the two? Can we figure out, where the connection was? And then we dive into that emotional connection to see, is this resistance showing up anywhere else? Because I don't guarantee anything, but I can probably make that connection. It didn't start with the selling of the hot tubs and having the sales conversation, but maybe when you were 5, it started then, and maybe your mother or father or sibling said to you, you know what, you suck at selling lemonade on the side of the sidewalk. And ever since then, you've had that resistance of, I cannot sell, and it gets reprogrammed into your brain that you're terrible at selling. And so why bother having these conversations? So there's a little bit of that going on. And that's why the emotional piece is so relative to figuring out, why am I resistant? Because if I'm resistant in having these conversations, money is then going to repel itself from me as well. I get into money a lot, even though these women are in the financial industry making multiple 6-7 figures. But I find that a lot of us in the coaching industry resist our own change because we're not looking at our old stuff and our old patterns and habits. And so that is where I think most of us need to actually go in order to get to where we want to go. That makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. I had money problems with asking for a sale.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, I never was able to sell candy bars in elementary school.
Oh, wow.
I would take the box home, hand it to my mother, and she would look at it and look at me like, what do you expect me to do? I don't have any money. And that was basically what I got from everyone I asked. I would end up taking them back, to the school. So those, I think elementary school, and selling was really tough. That's a tough gig. When, there's somebody in the class who sold 5 boxes and they seem to had no problem. And there you are with yours and you've sold two candy bars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember when I was little, I was good at selling, but then something happened in high school, early adulthood where that all changed. Because I lived in the country and it was a 45-minute walk to the nearest convenience store, the nearest store of anything. And I remember going in the ditch and picking ditch flowers like weeds, making them into little bunches of flowers, going door to door in the 90s, selling them for $2 a piece.
Aww.
Just so I could go buy candy. Like that stuff worked. But then again, like I don't know what happened in high school, university, whatever that age range, where I did the same thing, Lana. Like I couldn't sell a thing.
Mm-hmm.
No idea.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm working through it the last few years and you can see the difference.
Yes.
And I'm assuming you did the same thing, Lana, where you just
Absolutely.
worked through it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and that resistance, unfortunately, a lot of women sit in that for years, including one of my mentors who I spoke to this morning. She said, I sat in that for 45 years
Oh, wow.
and no one ever pointed it out to me. And now here I am working on, selling my services and products.
Mhm.
And I'm finally taking a look at all the resistance that has built up over the years. And what a shame that I didn't know. And so I think a lot of women don't know that they're sitting in resistance.
Yeah.
And that how significant that piece actually is to your sales process.
I don't remember where I heard this, but it was recent, like in the last week or so. Somebody had said, when you're thinking about money mindset, think about $1 million home. What kind of person lives in that $1 million home? And depending on how they describe that person will tell you what their money mindset is. And I went, that is a wonderful exercise. I never
Yeah.
thought of that. But it's so eye-opening. Do you do similar exercises to help people really understand where that emotion comes from or where that story comes from?
I use a signature process that I call heart work, and bringing women. It's a little bit of NLP style, combined with my own processes that brings them back into certain memories, and then brings them into the present, into the future, back into the past. So we're working, reprogramming as we do it, and I see the results almost like that, where, my client Andrea was pretty stuck in resistance of selling. But it was because she was afraid of really letting go of control. And 2 years ago, when we started working together, that's where she was, and her money was stagnant. Now we've got her locked and loaded. She hired a team. She's got, 4 people on her team, and she's making more money than she's ever made in her life because she let go of that control and really began to trust herself. And with the heart work and the NLP work, that's what I often see is the biggest gap is that lack of internal trust, lack of internal safety. And that's when the resistance sets in. That's when the anger, frustration, all the surface level emotions come into play.
Yeah.
And then we rely back onto our old way of selling, which is I need to persuade somebody to buy from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about delegation yesterday
Mm-hmm.
and how I was like, I know that I need to let go some of that control. And I know that like delegation is important for a business. And I was sharing how there's lots of chaos in my life right now. We're moving, like the cats are a different place. And so I needed to get my daughter a cell phone. I told her, I will pay for the basic plan, which means you have to work for me for a minimum of 2 hours a month to pay for that plan. But she's going to be doing all of the things that take me forever, where any other person, it would take them 15 minutes. And I'm like 3 hours and still second guessing myself. Because I have that story of still like, that's where I hang on to perfectionism is in certain areas. And that's one of them. And I'm like, she could get it done in 15 minutes.
Yep.
If I let go of that and let go of the control of it, things will be better. So I'm working on it.
Takes time.
Yeah. It does take time. Brittany. I guess I need to talk to my friend Tiffany. She must be thinking about me. What are your favorite ways to share your message? Is it through a book, or like you mentioned collaborative books, or do you prefer being on stage? Do you prefer podcasts? What's your jam when it comes to amplifying your message?
Personally, I love stepping on stage. If I could do that for the rest of my life, that's exactly what I would do.
Ooh, so describe to me what your ideal stage would feel like.
So I am originally from Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
and the Eagles who were in the Super Bowl, if you're a football fan, last year. We reluctantly lost, but we're coming back again. That stadium is a place that holds about, I think, 40,000 people.
Ooh.
So it is a stage that I would love to one day sell out.
Nice. By yourself? Collaborative event?
Collaborative event for sure. Yes.
I'm listening. My dream also has tiered stadium seating. Where did you say? Philadelphia? Okay.
Yes.
I'm listening. And then what would you be sharing? Like what would the audience be reacting like?
I think the main message would be around this whole permission and surrender way of life, where, where was the deepest, darkest moment, and where did you need to surrender? And then where are you giving yourself that permission to step fully into who you are becoming? I think a lot of us don't take the time to examine life in that way and celebrate all of our accomplishments on a daily basis. Just recently, I downloaded Darren Hardy's win streak app, where I'm literally tracking my wins every single day. And a win could be as small as I got up and breathed. I took a breath today. For some of us, it's simple as that. That's our win. For me, I got the baby up and ready for school and out the door by 8 this morning, which is a huge deal at 2.5. So, to be able to do that and hop on a call at 8 a.m. is a huge win. So celebrating, where we're currently at and then where we want to become, where we want to go with our businesses, where we want to go with our life. What does our future look like? I'm really sick and tired of hearing the fact that people on their deathbeds have regrets and the things that they did not get to accomplish, whether that's jumping out of an airplane or, starting a business, playing the lotto, whatever your dream, running the show and choreographing a whole speaking engagement for a big giant stage. I think if we collaborated more and we took the time to build those relationships with other people, sales becomes more of a conversation and it becomes really easy to sell, rather than I'm going to sit in this resistance and I'm never going to take action.
Yeah. Okay, see, now you have me picturing planning a huge event. Stadium. I love to plan. Okay. So then we touched a little bit on the speaking part. What is it about speaking that just calls to you?
It's almost as if when I step on that stage, that old saying, picture everybody in their underwear.
Yes.
I just pictured nobody there. And it's just me as my little 8-year-old self, who was very playful, very fun.
Mm-hmm.
I still am. And she's, holding her microphone as her pen.
Yeah.
Pen is her microphone. And she's just talking. I was one of those kids that I didn't need to play with other people. I could go into our basement and go downstairs and make up a whole monologue. I never needed my sister or my brother to play when I was the creator. I was, the person that was creating that story, whatever it was. Yeah. So when I step on a stage like a Harvard or a Women's Network event that I spoke at actually in Canada a couple years ago, and there was about 400 people in the room and it was wall to wall, and I didn't see faces. I didn't see anything except, what is the message that I can powerfully deliver that people need to hear in this moment? A lot of it gets channeled through. obviously it's planned as well, but you know, even when I spoke at Harvard, a lot of what I was saying just came through.
Yeah.
So that's it for me. And I know that public speaking is a huge fear for a lot of people, but for me, it's what my purpose is, to share a grander message, to get out there and give other people permission to sell the way they want, be the way they want, show up in their greatest gifts, and not shy away from doing big things, doing the impossible things, if you will.
Speaking of not shying away from doing big things, many people fear becoming an author. They're like, I'll write a book someday. I'll write a book someday. You mentioned you were part of different collaborative books.
Mhm.
Why did you choose collaborative books? Or was that kind of your segue into writing?
Yeah, and I've also written forewords to 2 books.
Nice.
So, you know, my name's out there in best-selling books. As far as writing my own, I personally just need to find the time to sit down and do it. Between running the business and working in the business, as well as running a 2.5-year-old around. It's just a matter of sitting down and taking the time to put pen to paper.
Yeah, I don't miss my daughter being 2.5. She's 13 now. She can look after herself when she comes home. It's good.
Yeah, you know, and that's another challenging piece of this all is you want to go in a certain direction with your business. It was a conversation I was having with a friend this morning. I want my business to go in a certain direction, and I know I can get there. How? You know, how do you do all of this with a baby and young children? And, you know, you don't need to sacrifice because you can have it all. That life of and is available. And I am living proof. I went from living check to check to, you know, almost homelessness in my addiction, to building a multiple 6-figure business and being able to run that while having children and crazy dogs. It's not as hard as we make it. But back to Lana with that resistance, that's what we often will sit in and not see our own potential, not see our own way of overcoming things. And so, you know, to amplify any message today, it's really about how can you shift your own core belief from I can't to I get to, because I do really get to do these things. I don't have to. I could go back and do what I was doing and make really good money, but I get to do this, and I choose to do this, and everything that we are choosing has purpose, has a matter. You know, good old science and physics, everything is matter, right? And so you matter.
That trying to think of the word. I can has also come up a lot. So for those listening, you can say it out loud. I can. Practice it at home. Where would we find you on social media, website? How do we connect with you?
Cool. So I just dropped a link into the chat. Send me a message on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, all the platforms. But let's get in a conversation. Let's start to build a relationship. Let's not shy away from getting to know one another and really see how we can collaborate. One of my, I'll call it a strength, is being able to connect the dots for other people. So, you know, if Laura, you needed a website designer or a mentor in the mental health space to be able to help you find that exact person or persons in order to get you where you need to go. And same thing for you, Lana. It's one of my core things that I believe that collaboration is the future of where we're going. So if we shy away from that and we stay in our little bubble and stay in our little hole, our businesses will suffer. So don't be afraid to reach out and have conversations with people that, hey, you may never know, right? It's really important.
I remember after my accident, I was in like a meeting. They were doing recording and stuff for the lawyers and everything. And one of the hardest things for me to say, especially out loud, was that I needed help.
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneurs, oh, yes, we like to do it all ourselves. We pride ourselves on being independent. But even as solopreneurs, it takes a team. And so I think it was about a month ago, I did a contest with some other entrepreneurs because we like collaboration, right? And we called it Team for a Day, specifically for that purpose. Because it's like we all need a team to be successful. It's never on your own. There's always somebody else. How can we work together? And it's also celebrating new people who have become entrepreneurs, especially since the pandemic. We're like, yes, welcome to the community. You're starting your business. How can we help get your word out there?
Right.
It's people like you and people like Lana and people like me who are just cheering you on. It's amazing. You mentioned website. One of my friends became an entrepreneur just in the last month. And so I'm like, you've known me forever. Come help me do my website and my branding. So,
Perfect.
yeah, we're working together now. It's wonderful. So with like 3-ish minutes that we have left, is there anything that you wanted to make sure that you shared with people before we concluded the interview?
Well, on this note of entrepreneurship, because I do have my hands in other projects,
Of
I
course.
do collaborate with other coaches and consultants in their businesses and real estate portfolio and all the stuff behind the business that I'm getting off the ground here. Sometimes when we're older, I consider myself middle-aged these days at a ripe 36.
You're younger than I am.
We get in this mindset of, I'm not an entrepreneur because I worked in corporate for 15, 20, whatever years. My favorite clients are the women who are in their mid 40s who go, yeah, so I just want to burn it all down and start over in this journey because all those stories that I was told I can't relate to anymore. And it's time that I take my power back. And entrepreneurship, it's one, not for the faint of heart, but two, it's for anybody who feels like they have a purpose, an idea that they can change and impact other lives. So even if you are listening to this and you're in a corporate job, working that 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever it may be, if you have that idea that you fully are behind and you can make it tangible and you can bring it to market in some sort of way, you have now become an entrepreneur in my mind. And it doesn't matter what age. It doesn't matter how many stupid pieces of paper that you went to university and got. It doesn't matter if your mom told you, I don't have money to help you sell these candy bars. If you can move past that resistance and fully step into that purpose and impact, you can now label yourself as that entrepreneur in my mind. And so that's really what I'll leave you all with.
Yeah, I definitely agree that entrepreneurship is not a job. It is a mindset, which questions, which wants to see things better, which wants change and innovation. It's a heart. I can
Yeah,
really
it's a self-love journey, and
Yeah.
it's also a self-healing journey. I had that conversation with my husband the other night. That's what it's really about. Entrepreneurship is the self-love journey.
Mm.
So if you want to get to know who you are at the core,
Try your hand at entrepreneurship.
yep, start dabbling and see where it takes you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aw. Well, this has been lovely, and we just want to thank you so much. I'm I guess speaking for Lana at the moment. Lana, if you have any comments, you're more than welcome to share.
Oh, this has been great. And I just love, Brittany, what you're doing, shifting the conversation around sales. It's so needed.
Thank
So
you.
incredibly needed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you
we're
both.
gonna send you to the backstage, and then we're gonna say goodbye to everybody. So
Sounds good.
again, thank you so much. Ooh, I'm sorry. Okay, bye everyone. Yes. I just want to be on time today. So thank you, Lana, for being my co-host.
Awesome.
I've been admiring your earrings the whole time.
Well, thank you so much.
I like shiny things. I like rocks and teal. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for day 3. There are 2 more days. You have 2 more days to join us with lots of other entrepreneurs, just like you and I, and Lana and Brittany, who's still with us in the background. Every day this week from 10 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern. Or if you're Atlantic like me, that's 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Atlantic, because I have an hour further than the East Coast of the U.S.
Wow.
Did you know there's a whole other time zone even past me that's in Canada? Yes, there is. Anyway, same bad time, same bad channel. Do you have any comments, Lana?
Thank you so much, Laura. It's always a pleasure.
Aw,
Always a joy.
thank you. Okay, see everyone tomorrow. Mwah! Bye. Ended the broadcast.